Thank you, Dirk. Let's give Dirk McCall a strong round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, I'm so happy to be here today. I'm delighted to host this first Bronx Tech Summit. I want to thank our sponsors here today. First, let me just say thank you to Josh. Where's Josh? Josh Rivera from Hostos Community College. Thank you, Josh. Come on. They lending us a space here. Thank you, Josh. Also, I want to say thank you to JP Morgan Chase, Google, Startup Box. Where's Majora Carter? Where's Majora? Majora? Hi, Majora. She's working. Let's give her a strong round of applause. And this I'm thrilled to see. We have Verizon and Cablevision with us here today. I again want to thank Majora and William Floyd. Where's William Floyd? William, let's give them you guys. No, come on, for real. Majora and William have really been working with Dirk, coordinating, calling everyone here, and let's give them a stronger round of applause. We really thank you. We really appreciate the effort that you put here. You know that there's so many different meetings that have happened here, especially with the Bronx Tech meetup. So many of you have been coming together. Some of you are here taking part of this type of meeting and summit for the first time. I thought that it was time for me as a borough president to sponsor this and bring us all together and have a deeper conversation, a deeper connection. As many of you know, the Bronx today is different than the Bronx of 10, 20, 30 years ago, or different than the Bronx that some people want folks to believe is still the Bronx of today. We have really come a long way. There's so many of you here that on a daily basis, whether you're an educator, whether you're a man and woman in business, whether you work in government, there's so many of you who have helped with the transformation with what we're seeing in our borough. And just to let you know, if you, for those who are not aware, we've done a lot of great things around housing. We've done over 16,000 units of housing, all built in the LEED sustainable way since I've been the borough president. We've seen over 15,500 net jobs. We've decreased unemployment by about 5.5%. Since I've been here. We've seen an infusion of private equity of over $8 billion. We've been able to revamp and repair and restore our public parks to the tunes of upwards of $300 million. A lot is happening here, investing in our universities, investing in our colleges and in our public system, and all of that is paying dividends. But one of the things that I feel like we had to do is come together and see how is it that collectively we take it to the next level. How is it that when you speak of job creation in our borough, we're not just speaking of retail, we're not just speaking of the health industry, the food industry, and we're doing a lot in those areas, in the educational field, but how is it that just like we see in other boroughs and other places of the United States, that we also become a tech hub? We've already been doing a lot around it. Startup Box, right, has been doing. Startup Box, no, did I get it right or wrong? Close enough. Yeah, Startup Box is, we've seen organizations like Scholas for so many years, where they provide the training for Bronxites and people from other parts of the city in software and in hardware as well. And the fact that a couple of months ago, we made an announcement where they were with Doran Jones, developing software for corporate America. And that's happening right here in Hunts Point. When the city of New York decided that it was a good idea, and we supported them to look at the telephone kiosk around the city of New York in order to provide a Wi-Fi hub, we fought to make sure that we have faster Wi-Fi right here in the Bronx and in other parts of the city, but also have more of those kiosks. We continue to allocate capital dollars to our educational system so that our kids can have technology in the school system. We need to make sure that we have Wi-Fi bubbles. We need to make sure that we have startups like what we're seeing in areas like Hunts Point. But we have to have that conversation. We want the next, we want Google to look at us. They're already over by across the street from the Chelsea market. But when they look to continue to expand, when they look to continue to have these incubators and these places where folks are starting up their companies, hey, not only can we show them that we have the space available here in our borough, but that we also have the intellectual capital and capability. We have smart individuals here, smart folks. I want to make sure that as we're building the infrastructure of the Bronx, as we continue to do housing, as we continue to provide the amenities like a beautiful, high bridge that we just opened up this week and other things, that the techies, that Bronx techies in particular, who start up a company here, we want them to stay here. We want them to feel at home here. We want to be the next Silicon Valley. So thank you all. We're going to have 2 exciting panels with great panelists. We really, really appreciate that there's been such a great turnout. And while so many of you have been getting together with different conversations as it pertains to me and my office, this is just the beginning, and the best is yet to come. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to bring up the attorney, the general counsel for the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation and the Business Improvement Corporation, Al Angera.
I personally hate using mics. I'm an attorney, so generally I'm very verbose. So if you can't hear me, I doubt that's going to be a problem. A quick show of hands. Who here has a smartphone? Congratulations. You have more technological power in your hand than all of NASA in 1969. You have more power in your hand than it took to launch men into the moon and orbit them. In your hand, you have the ability to reach every database, every book, every article known to man. Human existence is in your hand. We are at a very interesting time. Welcome to the technological revolution. This is where we're at. So the question begs, well, now what? With great opportunity comes great challenges. How do we bridge the digital divide? In New York City, there are those who don't have access to internet. They don't have the Wi-Fi access or the cable access because it's a financial hurdle for them. Then the question begs, infrastructure, as the borough president alluded to, human capital, the intellect. Do we have the manpower? How do we bridge these gaps? We have the potential to make these leaps and bounds. And this is where I come in, right? Because it's where, how, and who's going to pay for it. So where the Bronx? Why? What better place than here? What better time than now? The borough president always says there is a benefit to being the last borough, besides Staten Island. There is a benefit to... I really like those guys. They try really hard. They're doing a lot of good things, but they get the brunt of the stick. They're the redheaded stepchild. So there is a benefit to being the last borough. Brooklyn did it first. Queens did it. And in the Bronx, we have the opportunity to learn from their mistakes. We have the opportunity to say, this is what they did right, and this is what they did wrong. This is where we plan on moving forward. So that's why the Bronx. Now, because there is no better time than now. Tomorrow is too late. I'm sure all of you read Cranes, and I'm sure all of you are up to date on what's going on in the Bronx. The Bronx is red hot. Okay, it took them a long time to realize. Once they left, Manhattan, and they went into Brooklyn, they went into Queens. They looked at a map and said, "Well, wait a minute. The Bronx is 2 stops outside of Manhattan. I can be in Midtown in 20 minutes. This is great. This is perfect." I don't have to worry about flood zones in particular areas. I'm 2 stops out on the Metro North, or I'm 2 stops out on the 4, the 5, the B, the D. I don't know why I didn't think of this before. So come to the Bronx. Let's talk about innovation. Let's talk about how we plan on building our infrastructure, how we plan on getting technology, the technology each and every one of us have in our hand, into the masses. Okay. Now, I find technology as the linchpin of economic development. Why? Here in the Bronx, we have, as I'm sure all of you are aware, we have the food markets. We have the meat, the poultry, and the produce markets. All of those markets are run by technology. I can tell you a variety of individuals who I've met with, Nebraska Land, for example, who have everything done by technology. They know where their trucks are at any given second. They know if a truck has been there for too long. They can contact a driver and say, truck A is having problems. They're 20 miles from you. Go help them. Okay? It helps everyone's bottom line. Now, as technology being the linchpin, the question becomes, how do we finance this? And that's why I'm up here talking. Okay. How do we finance it? I represent Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, as well as the Business Initiative Corporation of New York, BIC. BIC is a sister organization. I'm here speaking on their behalf. I do not actually work for them or represent them, so I have to make that very clear. BOEDC runs several loan programs, as does BIC. BIC is a 504 lender. They're one of only 2 504 lenders in New York State. Okay, BOEDC has several loan products ranging from anywhere from $10,000 up to $1 million. We're a CDFI fund. Quick show of hands if you know what that means. You're lucky, because I had no idea when I joined them. I was like, CDFI fund, that sounds great. A lot of acronyms, that's wonderful, good luck to you. CDFI fund actually means a community development financial institution. Okay, very similar to a bank, except a bank cares about their bottom line. A bank cares about how much revenue they're generating, because that's their business. As an economic development corporation, we care about how much we can help the community, how much we can develop and spur economic growth, how many jobs we can create, how we can elevate this borough to being the best borough that it can possibly be. And through that mechanism, we have several loan funds. Again, ranging from $10,000 up to $1 million, to help businesses take that next plateau, to help businesses who are starting up, or help businesses who are looking to make that leap to the next venture. How do we get there? I've met several individuals at the Banknote building who are in incubators. I've met several individuals who are sharing space and who are tech businesses and who are looking, well, how do I make this next leap? How do I get the technical assistance to move forward? And it's my job to tell you that we're here for you. If you want to contact BOEDC, feel free. I'll be available later on today. If you want to look into some financing of loan products, I'm more than available. But that's my snippet. I hope you learned something. If not, it's okay. And it was a pleasure. Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to bring up the first panel. If we can get all the panelists and the moderator to come on up. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Javier Sade, from the U.S. Small Business Administration.
How's everyone doing? Thank you. I am so happy to be in the Bronx. Before I got appointed to the role I currently hold, I used to live right in New York. My grandpa was born in the Bronx. I have deep ties, but I'm not a Yankees fan, so no eggs or tomatoes. I'm sadly a Cubbies fan. So this is a very interesting discussion because for the Small Business Administration and for the administration overall, I run programs that are at the intersection of innovation and investment across the United States. I run a program called the SBIC program, which has 300 venture capital, private equity, and mezzanine funds investing $25 billion into American small businesses, and I want more of that money to go to places like the Bronx. Second program I run is called the SBIR program. Essentially, that's America's largest seed fund. It's $2.5 billion a year, which is granted to people that are doing research, technology, engineering, or science, focused on a very broad research agenda. Anybody can participate. And third, I run a growth accelerator fund in which we provide funding to accelerators, incubators, and innovation ecosystems, thank you, across the nation. I'm going to throw this down. Nobody cares about my name. All you care about is the money I'm talking about. For the administration, I sit in the Broadband Opportunity Council, which we're going to be talking about here, and I know we have somebody from Verizon and Cablevision, so all complaints To them, please. Only the good stuff to me. So I'm very happy to be talking about this. I sit at the Innovation Council at the White House. I sit at the Securities and Exchange Commission Advisory Committee on Small and Emerging Companies. One of the things on our table is crowdfunding. I know that's very exciting for people here. Equity crowdfunding hasn't yet passed. But let's get to the business of what we're going to talk about, which is infrastructure and, more importantly, the backbone of getting the digital divide in America shortened. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in order for the esteemed panelists to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their sphere of influence, and then I'm going to ask questions and go from there. Make sense? All right, go get them.
Okay. I have a little presentation if I can figure this out.
Okay.
No, I don't do presentations.
Nope.
Or maybe not.
Hold on a second. Can you guys help me figure this out? I have no idea. Not that tech savvy.
His views don't represent the views of anybody in this panel or his skills.
Just a little humor. Nope. Oh, there it is. Ah, okay, good. This one. Okay. Okay, sorry, everybody. So thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here. My name is Scott Goldsmith. I'm the Chief Commercial. $500 million over the next 15 years. So it's a great program. We can answer any questions you might have. The first links are going to be in the ground. First pilot will be in the ground in July of this year, actually at the Brooklyn Army Terminal, and then you'll start seeing the first links on the street sometime in late September, early October. So really glad to be here. Happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Marlin. John Beck.
Hello, you hear me? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marlin Jenkins. Would you prefer if I stand?
Oh, yeah, let's go one by one.
Okay. Stand or?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Marlin Jenkins. I created the organization called Neture. It is oddly enough, to follow my gentleman to the left, we provide free internet access, free broadband and computers to low-income households. The difference between us and what Lincoln, what he does, is we actually provide them in their homes. Right now we're doing a beta test of the service in the South Bronx with our partners Nos Quedamos. And the plan is for us to ensure that every household is not only connected, but also using the services to improve their outcomes in some way, whether it's economic or education. Thank you.
My name is Steve Amarante with Sky Packets, and as Marlon said, we've partnered with his company. Our core competency is to provide Wi-Fi mesh networks in public spaces, and as well as within individual structures. We currently support we're up to 11 million subscribers here in New York City. We've partnered with Google to develop the Chelsea network in Manhattan and other projects across the U.S., including Boston. Our goal is to be able to close the digital divide and bring smart technologies beyond Wi-Fi to the Borough Bronx and other low-income areas.
Good afternoon. My name is Leecia Eve. Is this on?
Yeah.
Yes. My name is Leecia Eve. I represent Verizon. When I say Verizon, I mean the universe of Verizon. So many of you may be customers in our wireless. We have, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but it's really two phases of the project. One called Prems Pass, which is we line every avenue throughout all the 5 boroughs with our best-in-class fiber product. And the second phase, which we have already begun, first phase is done. The second phase, which we've already begun, is if you're an apartment.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Michael Olson. I'm here for my colleague Lee Schroeder on the program. She couldn't be here. First, on behalf of Cablevision, thank you to the Borough President. Thank you for having us. We're delighted to be here. Cablevision has been So we brought cable TV to every household in the Bronx. And as the Borough President says, the Bronx is different now. Today, Cablevision, Optima, your sponsor, is a connectivity company. We make available to every household in the Bronx and every business in the Bronx 101 megabit broadband. We have today hundreds of thousands of Wi-Fi access points in the Bronx and Brooklyn. Just to put that in perspective, Link, which we love, is 7,500. We already have in our New York footprint and adjoining Connecticut, New Jersey, 1.5 million hotspots. So this is an amazing commitment to connectivity, and it serves as a platform for innovation and investment here in the Bronx. We couldn't be more delighted than to see this initiative to get more people.
I am blown away. So you got big companies very focused on this. You got innovative. Really talking business here, and what I want to try and do is when I throw the questions at you, a little bit of internet and mobile, the ability to access a reliable, high-speed internet connection, and technology infrastructure in the Bronx today. Go. Jump on.
Okay, so this is how my company was founded, right? or the same money. Certain things start to get cut. We spend more money now as a family than we have ever in our lifetime. So, so the first thing that typically gets cut is technology, right? I mean, we want to have it, but we can't. So you choose between food, rent, and technology. So I think that's a negative. Any thoughts, Scott?
No, I think. And it will become a link somewhere in the next 8 years. We're working with Do It and with the City of New York to figure out.
Reach the homes and the apartment buildings in the city of New York. That's separate from businesses who we love to serve. We want to serve as quickly as possible. In terms of schools, though, which I really think is central, and also libraries, these are budgetary decisions, right, that the city of New York has to make. President Obama has made it a priority to focus on the upgrade of the technological capabilities of schools across the country. My former boss, Governor Cuomo, has an unwavering commitment across the state of New York, from my old home of Buffalo to my relatively new home of New York. And as we know, Mayor de Blasio has made the same commitment. But it takes resources. The schools throughout the city of New York that serve 1.1 million school children, which is more than probably many states serve, has obviously budgetary issues and financial issues. But years ago, commitments were made to say, okay, we want to purchase particular services that years later really aren't sufficient to meet all the needs as I believe the city and many of its parents would like. So it takes priorities. It also takes creative thinking. You know, and I'm not an educator, and I'm not going to claim to be an expert, but you know, many of our children now can possibly learn on tablets over a wireless network rather than carrying 2-pound books. So what is the policy? What is the budgetary commitment on those issues? What is the commitment to ensure that our schools all across the city, serving roughly a million children, you know, have those most robust networks? They're clearly available. You know, my colleague here to the right, Cablevision, has talked about his company's commitment to the Bronx. We clearly, I believe, have, you know, the best network, you know, possible, but it does take a financial investment. And as my father taught me many years ago, he served in the state assembly for 36 years with distinction, and he would always say to me that your budget reflects your priorities. Your budget reflects your priorities, whether it's your personal budget or your governmental budget. So I think we need to think about what are the budgetary priorities, and also need to work, you know, with providers to come up with the most current, you know, up-to-date solution for our children's needs. The last thing that I'll say is, you know, there are things that companies across the country, including mine, have done from a philanthropic effort to support some of our schools. And when President Obama asked a number of technology companies, including Verizon, to help him with his philanthropic efforts, Verizon stepped up to the plate and said, you know, without taking a break, count us in for $100 million. So, you know, in my view, we have an unwavering commitment to help our schools, you know, across our footprint, but it does take the decision makers to make the commitment, both financial, creative, and forward-thinking, to ensure that our children have the most current infrastructure available to them.
Michael, you got some thoughts?
Well, the only thing I'd note is that there are a lot of things in process and in place that help schools connect. Obviously, the state just passed a $2 billion bond fund that's being allocated throughout the state to allow the purchase of capital infrastructure. We want to support that with operating infrastructure. There's E-rate programs for the schools to expand Wi-Fi and connectivity. And there's even consideration now for Lifeline being extended to broadband for low-income families. But even shy of all that, it's important, as part of our commitment to the community, Cablevision brings free broadband to over 200 schools, and we bring 100 megabit broadband to, I think, 35 libraries. And these are areas where people can come, they can get connected, even if they don't have it at home or until they have it at home. That's important, and it's out there. When you ask the first question, what's the gap with the Bronx? Bronx is connected. We have the infrastructure. People need to know it. And it's available in libraries, it's available in schools, and it's available now increasingly in most homes and businesses.
I can tell you just a reaction from looking at the national level, and you're right about Leecia, about Obama being very focused on closing gaps and using not only technology as an enabler of helping to close that gap, but philanthropy when the public can't or won't step up to the plate because of political issues or whatnot, is that the Bronx is not trying to catch up to beat the people across the river. They're trying to catch up because it's global. Every business that goes online is global on day one. I've been all over the country to places like Albuquerque, where they have some of the most impressive and well-funded national labs that do a lot of nuclear engineering, yet some of the poorest people in the country because of the Native American reservations. So there's these gaps and islands, and technology is one of those things that may not help equalize all the pieces, because the ingredients to innovation include policy and capital and all these other things, but technology is a great, incredible backbone. So the fact that you guys are very much thinking about this is important. So I'm gonna do a statement, and then I'm gonna do questions for a few people. Statement. According to a New York state broadband program, annual report, over 90% of New York City residents have residential access to high-speed broadband. In a similar study, it was stated that 41,000 in the Bronx do not have access to broadband. That has been mentioned before. Prior to the Time Warner and Comcast merger falling apart, our public advocate, Tish James, was pushing free broadband access to low-income individuals. In addition, Mayor de Blasio, as part of One New York initiative, recently made a commitment, as you heard already, to ensure that every resident and business will have access to affordable, reliable, high-speed broadband everywhere by 2025, which sounds like really far away, but in policy and city economic development terms is a blink of an eye. So to Marlin and/or Steve, I want to hear from both of you. Since you both are focusing on free broadband solutions and access, I'd like to hear your perspective on free broadband access and your ideas for executing these initiatives.
Our focus really to deliver free broadband is circled around providing broadband with core services. So as an example, the city of New York has to pick up garbage. So what we've done is partnered with a company called Belly Solar to provide Wi-Fi access out of a garbage can. Another thing that we're doing is we're working with security companies to bundle in enough bandwidth so as they're putting up IP security cameras for the New York City Police Department, that there's enough free bandwidth for people to use. So core services is an important part of delivering free access to folks who can't afford it. Policy, and I think it was mentioned before, in particular with rooftop access, it's a big challenge for us. There's an expectation from real estate and property owners that if you have access to my rooftop, I have to get X amount of dollars. When we are providing free Wi-Fi and it's a non-generating revenue-generating network, it becomes extremely challenging to offer up X amount of dollars to property owners. So it's a big challenge, and I think that's something that needs to be addressed from a policy perspective. For us, really, the core services is the crux of it all. And also, I think something that we've done here in the Bronx, it's this idea of crowdsourcing infrastructure, B2B. So in our case, we provide the infrastructure backbone for Marlin's company, and he's focusing more on the community groups and other links in that chain to provide the free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I think I mean, I was in telecom for 10 years, and I've actually worked for Verizon some years ago. And one of the things that you realize is that, although this is changing now, but there's more than enough access. I mean, if you look at the fiber pipes that are laid down throughout the city, throughout the country, there's more than enough access. The problem has never been access. It's typically been getting people connected. So I come back to the point, when we created our network, one of the things we realized, we did tons of surveys, tons of research. I think we researched for like 6 years. And one of the things we wanted to observe is, okay, well, why do people use the internet? How do they use the internet? What do they use the internet for, right? So one of the things that came across to us is, okay, well, we have to provide a device to every household that we provide internet in. The reason why is because if you're looking at a traditional household, the average household in the Bronx makes somewhere around $30,000 a year. That's with 2.3, 2.5 people per household. Now, if you had several children, that obviously that $30,000 doesn't go very far. You think about the fact that rent now in the Bronx occupies somewhere around 50% of your income, right? So think about this number. You're making $30,000 a year before taxes. You probably come back to maybe 25, 24, 23. Half of that money goes towards your rent. Then you have to think about food, transportation, schooling, clothing, da-da-da-da-da, right? Again, I come back to the point. You're going to start to cut your internet and broadband and those things first. So we had to think of, okay, well, what happens if they have access, but the computer dies? The average computer nowadays, if you want to get a decent computer, you can probably get one for $500. All right, so then they decide to take a credit card, go $500 a computer. They lose their job, or they don't have enough money to spend, so they have to they lose their debt. So you see how it starts to snowball. This is the issue that exists every single day with every single family. Credit card debt, so on and so forth. So we said if we provide every household with a computer, and we provide them with the free internet access, the only job we really have to do is ensure that they're using it to the benefit of improving that household. So that's why our platform is not just provide internet. Our platform is not just to provide a computer. Our platform is a fully dedicated solution to provide a computer, the internet, and then on top of that, we created a project called the Peers Project, which is an acronym that stands for Priorities, Encouragement, Engagement, and Responsibility Success, which is a series of steps that each nonprofit that we work with partners with the families to ensure that they're using it to achieve a goal. So you see how this starts to create a much bigger solution than just internet. Then on top of that, we're looking at, okay, well, we know that the state is looking at trying to ensure that medical services are provided to every family, but they don't want them to use emergency services. They don't want to use traditional health services, go to a doctor. So now we're talking to hospitals, okay, well look, we're gonna have this network up and running anyway. What about trying to find a way to connect to these families so you can get to a doctor sooner? Okay, again, you start to see how this is not just about the internet. This is not just about broadband and a computer. This is much bigger than that. We look at the internet and this network as a foundation for every family. And we hope that it becomes more than that. And then we start to build it, and we start to connect with the Links NYCs and the Verizons and the Cablevisions of the world to say, look, let's connect every family to not just the internet, but to the resources that the internet can provide, and that's our solution.
Can I just add a couple of things to follow up with that? Well said. A couple of things, and I think this would be probably more addressed in the next panel. It's that sometimes we don't see human resources as infrastructure, and I think that we need to kind of shift our thinking when it comes to that. For us, it's a crucial part of our business model to take folks who may have not had the opportunity to be exposed to technology, bring them aboard, onboard into the company, and it allows us then to provide same quality of service at a much cheaper rate than the traditional telcos and MSOs. So that's something that really needs to be thought about, human resources as infrastructure. And this, I think, was mentioned by Cablevision. The infrastructure, in particular with bandwidth, does exist here in the Bronx. One of the things that we found fascinating about a year or 2 years ago, and this was on behalf of Google, we had gone out and done a site survey at one of the libraries here in the Bronx, in Mott Haven. They currently have over 100 megs, and I think it's Cablevision that provides that. But what's fascinating about it is if you look at the library, they open their doors 9 a.m. in the morning, they close at about 6 p.m. The peak hours for data usage in people's homes is after 6 p.m. So the technology today exists for us to create middleware to leverage the existing infrastructure that's already built out for us to then service communities, in particular during those peak hours when people need it the most. So leveraging existing assets, city assets, is a crucial component in addressing the digital divide.
So I should have said this in the beginning of the panel, but I'm going to say it now. I don't know if it was mentioned that thing you see there is the hashtag for Twitter. By the way, if nobody figured out what that meant, I'm sure you'll figure it out. The second thing is that I'm really filler here. I'm playing second fiddle to New York State Assemblyman Blake, who was supposed to be here, and sadly, well, not sadly, he's doing his job by being in session and passing laws on behalf of the Bronx. So I'm just filling in for him. So I should have said that in the beginning. It was like, who the hell is this guy? So let's go to Michael for a second on this kind of same thematic. Specifically, Cablevision's approach to Wi-Fi as a solution for broadband in the Bronx, because there's all these technologies that you could solve the problem with, like the fiber. So what's so good about what you guys are doing? Wow the audience.
Yeah, well, I mean, thanks for asking about Wi-Fi. Optimal Wi-Fi is really important to us. It is the way of taking the broadband that we provide throughout the Bronx in people's homes and extending it to where they want to use it, which is out and about in the streets and in the community and the stores. And what's really great about the Optimum Wi-Fi project, and as I said, it's now it's approaching 1.5 million hotspots, and we're trying to create a dense, rich environment where Wi-Fi is accessible on your mobile devices or whatever it is all over the place. And it is allowing us to extend our network in ways that for some people is a really great cost opportunity for them. For example, our average customer that uses Wi-Fi uses 6 gigabits of data a month. No cost, no caps, no extra charge. That's a phenomenal savings off, say, a mobile plan that might otherwise cost you money. Another way we're using Optimum Wi-Fi is to reach people who don't want to buy the traditional cable bundle. So, for example, we have a low-cost package. It's about $35. You get broadband in your home. You also get access to that 1.5 million hotspots and a freewheel phone. And this is a great example. Freewheel is a product that we introduced. It's a mobile Android device. It's got text, data, and voice, all Wi-Fi only. It's $9 a month. That's it. And if you're on that plan, and it's included in the $35 plan, this is a way to get access to broadband where you might not be able to otherwise get a cellular plan or a 100 megabit data plan. So we're trying to reach that community, and Wi-Fi is really the sharp end of the stick for us. We're looking for new places to put it. Great example, by the way, is libraries are closed at night. We want to take that 101 megabits and put hotspots on the outside of libraries so people can use that broadband at night. So we're looking for new ways, and it's going to continue to be at the forefront of our effort.
I'm going to go off script. I think we got like 10 minutes left, maybe 5, and I want to actually throw it to the audience. If anybody has questions, I think I see a microphone there. Feel free to grab it and ask the question to a specific person or to the panel, and somebody will grab it.
Can I just
Please.
speak to it without grabbing it? No,
You don't have to grab it, yes. You can speak to it.
Thank you. My name is Carlos Molina. I'm the Vice President for Continuing Education and Workforce Development here at Hostos Community College. I don't have a question. I have a proposition. Now, we are building here at the college a very robust IT training program that our Assistant Vice President, Chief Information Officer, Vice President Sehgal will talk to you about it. We've got a terrific system within the college. For a very small college, probably rivals our sister institutions in the Bronx. And what we're trying to do from a training perspective is to address some of the issue, the human resources, the issue of employment, et cetera. We can do that. I also know that the IT world has hundreds of thousands of positions that go unfilled. We can do that. However, where we are short is that in our training programs, we need your help for paid internship for our students. So my question is, can I reach out to each and every one of you to begin the dialogue? And, well, I would like to have you all stand, raise your right hand, and commit, but I won't do that. I won't do that. You know, I can see it in your faces, you're ready to go. So when you hear from me, you'll know that that's what I will be broaching you. Thank you very much, and I welcome you to the college.
You know, Mr. Bendini, I know, didn't have a question. Thank you for the great comments. And I know that that's the subject matter of the next panel, but I just wanted to put a fine point on what he said. And Steve alluded to it earlier. Obviously, we've been focusing mostly on physical infrastructure, but the human capital is extraordinarily important. You know, as I mentioned, you know, we've got 12,000 workers that call New York City home, highly compensated workforce, because my boss, our chairman and CEO, wants to get the best and the brightest, right? The best and the brightest New Yorkers working for this company. But it is a challenge, I think, for all of our companies. I'm looking at Cablevision, I'm looking at my, you know, brother from Google, you know, to make sure that that pipeline continues not only for tomorrow, but for years to come. Many of you know that the mayor had a tech talent pipeline task force. I was proud to serve on his workforce development task force. As a matter of fact, you know, we had some meetings right here at Hostos Community College, and I'm proud that Verizon is really the only company that has not one but two representatives on the mayor's tech talent pipeline workforce, because we recognize it's important to the city of New York, but to Verizon as a whole. But can't emphasize enough to all of you who are parents out there, our schools right now don't require computer science. They don't require computer science at the elementary level, the high school level, and unless you're a computer science major, most colleges across the country don't require it. How crazy is that? How crazy is that? So we hope that our educational leaders will catch up and say, you know what, this is not rocket science. This should be as important as English, as math, as, you know, every other major class that our students have to take. But until that day happens, I hope you as parents or aunts or uncles or brothers or sisters will ensure that your children get the basic computer science classes. I was a, you know, liberal arts major. I'm a lawyer by training, a policy wonk, you know, and now I'm VP of Government Affairs. But I tell all my nieces and nephews, get into science, technology, engineering, and math, because it's going to be scientists who are going to rule the world if they're not doing it already. So I just, you know, really wanted to emphasize, you know, the points that that were made, and really want to applaud Hostos, which I know is a leader in this area. Verizon, we support a number of initiatives of nonprofits who are involved in increasing the pool of people who enter that tech talent pipeline, including organizations like Scholas, where I had a chance to spend a fair amount of time. But in addition to the physical infrastructure that our companies are so proud to make possible, that human capital really can't be understated. So thank you again.
That sounds like a yes answer to your non-question. That's a lawyer response. I love lawyers. Lawyers are great. It's a nation of laws. I think, are we set, or is there time for two more questions? Okay, please. Anyone that wants to talk to the mic, not grab it, please feel free. Hi there.
Good afternoon. Y'all may not know my face. My name is Makia. I'm a current student, almost graduating next year. I was very concerned about what you guys said. It's very important to have that technology also in the Bronx. My question was to you, and this is my last question. How will this reach to other countries? I'm very concerned about Africa. I'm very concerned about Europe. And then I'm concerned about North America. 50% of, I would just say it, the African Americans do not have accessibility in their infrastructure of their country. Number one, because there's no computers, there's no accessibility in their schools, colleges, and also their households. So when they come from their country to come here to get the opportunities for them to have, how is it going to affect their families and their future children generations to come?
Well, I'll try to take that one, even though I'm in the domestic policy side of the administration. I can tell you that technology and entrepreneurship is an arrow in the quiver of foreign relations. When everybody used to think about foreign relations, it was military actions or diplomatic actions. But guess what? Entrepreneurship is now a career path, and entrepreneurship is a good way and a solid way to actually build middle classes. And this president is very focused on trying to build those bridges so that when there's unrest in other countries, there's violence, there's extremism. I don't have to tell New Yorkers how bad economic situations and some religious fervor drive people to do crazy things. So it is critical that we all are thinking globally, because it is technology makes the world a lot smaller. So that's a really good question. Maybe time for one more. Thank you.
Hello. My name's Brogan. I'm representing Assemblymember Michael Blake. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here. I wrote my question down. It's a little bit long, so I'll try to read it slow. So with introducing a public service that is limited, regulated, and developed by financial institutions and corporate-minded companies, what do you think this means for the development of community-based engagement or civil society sector development if yet another service is in the hands of the few?
So it's interesting. One of the things I was listening to earlier, someone said something about giving tablets to families to connect to the internet. I have a huge fear of tablets. And it's not because I don't like them or anything like that. My kids have them. It's because what I'm concerned about is the amplification of information. So what I mean by that is, the more we use tablets, the more information is consolidated, right? So you can only use X amount of information at one given time. Whereas computers, you have access to everything. Now, theoretically, don't get me wrong, I know you can use a browser, but most people, when they have a tablet, they do not use the browser, they use the applications. So coming back to your point, if you're thinking about it from the perspective of, if we make sure we connect every household, but we do not give them a computer, we'll only give them a tablet and a phone. Number one, you're limiting their access, because you're not able to do as much on a tablet. You're not able to do it anywhere near as much on a phone. Number two, you're limiting the amount of information they can access. So the truth of the matter is, the internet was founded by professors. The internet was founded for the purposes of research. It was founded for the purposes of bettering everyone else. Now, unfortunately, there's these gateways to get the information. That's just the way it has always been like that. But what we have to do is we have to take responsibility for ourselves and say, okay, how can we
as residents, as community leaders, as business owners, say, okay, what can I do to share a little bit of what I have to the next person? I'm not saying everyone has to do this, but that's the only way that everyone's going to access. I mean, I created this business because I said, okay, well, I have an idea of how it could work that maybe no one else thought of thus far. But it requires me to give something. So I've had to give up the right to make, $4 of a profit versus $2 of profit. But as a social venture, the mission is to connect as many houses as possible. So hopefully we don't have as many people that are disconnected. Hopefully we can connect as many people and in turn connect the local resources to them as well.
And on that note, it looks like please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you for listening, and a great panel coming up.
When did you start?
I'd like to bring up two people at the moment. Josh Rivera from Hostos Community College to thank you for coming to Hostos, and James Chase from Startup Box, who's going to introduce a presentation between the two panels. So first, Josh Rivera, please come to the front. Thanks. So you're going to play that video, you think? Yes, we're going to play the video. So Josh Rivera, and then you introduce James.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? My name is Joshua Rivera. I'm Director of Government External Relations here at Hostos Community College. I'd like to welcome all of you to the institution. On behalf of President David Gomez, who unfortunately was unable to attend today, I'd like to welcome everyone to this event. When Dirk called and asked if the Borough President could host this event here, I was more than happy to say yes. This first panel was really, really an enlightening discussion. I can't wait to see the second panel. I am a moderate techie. I do have an iPhone, so I'm somewhat techie, but I'm one of those that actually has two phones, so I get twice as confused. But it's been a great panel, and I really hope the second conversation is as lively as the first one. Technology for us here on campus, and our AVP Varun Sehgal will talk more about it later. It's really important for us, for our students, particularly the courses that they take and the degrees that they're pursuing. There's a lot of technology involved. We want to make sure that they have the best access to the best quality items and materials so they can perform at their best as they take their boards and search their degrees. So thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoy the second panel. We'll get started very shortly.
Hello, I'm James Chase representing Startup Box today, and as a palate cleanser for your panelists today, we're bringing on somebody who recently did a really great thing, and they're doing it here in the Bronx. There was a 5-borough pitch slap contest where there was a contest in every borough, and the winner from each borough went to a citywide pitch contest for why their business is the best thing out there of those who entered. And we're very proud that the one who won all 5 boroughs has her business here in the Bronx. It's a unique form of social enterprise that we can all learn a lot from in terms of how do we model things that we want to improve, some of which you heard before, and ways that we want to attract the best talent because they know they can earn a good living doing it. So it's a huge pleasure to introduce the CEO, founder, leader of Spare New York City, Andra Thompson.
Hello. Wow, everyone's so tall. Okay. Hi, I'm Andra. I actually live right by Yankee Stadium, so this is super close to my house. And I went to Fordham for 7 years, undergrad and grad. So Bronx almost 10 years. So, so I have an app, and this is what I presented to the pitch competition. I'll give you a quick overview. So essentially, I've created an app that allows New Yorkers thank you, to round up their bill to the nearest dollar when they're out at a bar or restaurant in New York, and we send that spare change to support local hunger relief efforts. So we partner with Food Bank for New York, City Harvest, City Meals on Wheels, and New York City Rescue Mission. It takes just 25 cents to feed somebody in the city, so rounding up does make a huge impact. And just to give you a sense of the larger impact, there's 235 million missing meals throughout the 5 boroughs every year. 50% of that need is in the Bronx, believe it or not. And we figured out if we could engage 10% of New Yorkers to round up for a total of just $6 a month, we could close that gap in 1 single year and really create a tremendous collective impact as a city. Also, if you round up at partner restaurants, you get free drinks, appetizers, and dollar discounts. So definitely do it. It's called Spare. Download it. And then, beyond that, I wanted to speak a little bit about how I structured the company. So I started as a 501c3. I still have my 501c3. And I found that as particularly a startup venture in the social impact community, it's really hard to get a grant because you have to have proof of concept a lot of the times. You ask for money to build your business and they say, well, how many people have you fed? And you say, well, I kind of need your money to feed people. So it's sort of a circular thing. So after a year of that, I decided that my product was better suited for investment. So I went ahead and I incorporated a benefit corporation. And now I sort of have the two entities working together. And a B Corp, it's a for-profit social structure. It's relatively new. I think there's only 1,200 in the States right now, but it allows you to put a social mission ahead of your bottom line. So I think legally you're not able to be sued by your investors if you decide to put your social mission first. So it's an interesting structure. And I have the two working together. So I have my B Corp leasing my technology out to my nonprofit for a 20% fee. So we're able to donate 80% of what we raise and yet still function as a for-profit, able to attract investment and scale out to other states and other cities, not only in the US, but throughout the world. So that's us. Yeah. Thank you so much.
We'll send out information about the app to everybody who signed in. So if you haven't signed in, please do sign in and make sure we have your business card. We're also going to be giving you information about the Bronx Tech meetups. And at that point, you'll be able to sign up and come to the monthly meetings. James and Majora are doing amazing work. And with that having been said, I'd like to bring up Majora Carter, our new moderator for the second panel. And if all the panelists could come up, that'd be great.
So holla if you love the Bronx. Yeah. You can do a little better than that, folks. That's all right. So while we assemble this highly esteemed panel, thank you all for doing this. And so while we're all set and getting ready, could I just ask everybody to stand up real quick? Just a little quick, real funny. Just to get a little bit of stretch going, because I'm feeling like there's a little lack of energy and you got to do something to get it up. So just kind of like your shoulders up, my neck, roll your neck around a little bit, both directions, please, and lift your hands up and just like really just give yourself a little stretch and turn and face your neighbor and give him a hug. See? Notice how my panel's not particularly friendly. That's okay. I'm like standing up here all by myself. Huh? I shouldn't I? All right, now you can sit down and we can do the hookups later at G-Bar. But in the meantime, no, really, I'm so excited to be here. And this particular panel is a bit of a labor of love and just the reason for being here as far as I'm concerned. So, I'm Majora Carter. I am the CEO of the Majora Carter Group. We've been doing urban revitalization strategies, starting here in my hometown in the South Bronx, but working nationally as well, holla. And I'm also a co-founder of Bronx Tech Meetup, and my illustrious co-founder is sitting back there, Tina's shoulder. So wave to everybody, Tina. Say hi. There you go. And I'm also a startup, run a startup social enterprise tech companies as well called Startup Box, which you'll hear from a little bit today, but I'm just excited about that as well. But anyway, we know that here in New York City, we're known worldwide as a place that's known as a melting pot or a mosaic, but in the tech world here, it is lacking sort of significantly in diversity. Overwhelmingly white, overwhelmingly male. I would certainly not be the default person one would think of when you think of a tech founder, right? That's okay, because that is actually not true. There's plenty of us out there. But, and also as a loud, proud daughter of the South Bronx, crazy, hearing about it is that, one of the first descriptors that come out of most folks' mouth when they write or think about it is that, part of it is one of the poorest congressional districts in the country, full stop, as if that will define us for the rest of their life. And, as the borough president was saying, definitely this place is very different from the 70s and 80s burning Bronx that we grew up in. lots of things, amazing things have changed here. And so again, being loud, proud, talented daughter of the South Bronx, no, we're not alone. So there is definitely great opportunities here. And so, but how do we ensure that Bronxites, us as a borough, are given the opportunity to participate fully in the tech economy? How are we building and supporting tech talent in the pipeline level, but also to develop entrepreneurs? How are we building and attracting tech businesses? And so that they come to and see the Bronx as a great place to be. And how are we doing all this specifically as an economic development strategy for our borough, which will, of course, help all of New York City, but significantly support our communities and show exactly that New York City can actually have tech ecosystems that exist well above 30th Street and Brooklyn. We can do it here. Believe me, it can be done in the Bronx. It's already happening. So it gives me great, great pleasure to introduce this amazing panel that we have here today, because they're all doing it, each in one in their very own pipeline right here in the Boogie Down. And so first, so the way this is going to run, I'm going to introduce each one of them here really quickly. And then they're going to have about 2 minutes each to talk about what it is they're doing. And then I'm going to ask one quick question, and then we're going to throw it open to the audience, okay? So you start thinking, put your thinking caps on, and because they're all brilliant, believe me. So first, we have Keith Klain, who's the CEO, co-CEO of Doran Jones, a New York-based consulting company building a technology outsourcing center in the South Bronx. And for the last 20 years, Keith has built technology teams for global financial services and IT consulting firms in the US, UK, and Asia Pacific. Keith designed the software testing education program with the Bronx-based nonprofit Scholas while he was a director at Barclays Investment Bank. He's the executive vice president of the Associate for Software Testing and was the recipient of the 2013 Software Test Professionals Luminary Award. So that is Keith right here. Then we've got, who's next? Oh, James Chase. James Chase, as president of Startup Box. James uses his experience in the New York media, communications, and marketing industries to discover new clients for the B2B services that allow Startup Box to employ people in the South Bronx today. The entry-level jobs he's responsible for are platforms for career building, as well as valuable cash flows into communities from which technology only takes money out. Angie Kamath is from Scholas, training into job creation. Who's next? Oh, Alex, there you go. Alex Abelin is the co-founder and CEO of LiquidTalent, a new generation job platform modernizing the way professionals discover, connect, and work together. Prior to starting LiquidTalent, Alex spent 7+ years at Google, spending time in 4 different offices, and was responsible for bringing free Google-sponsored Wi-Fi to Chelsea. Way to go. Cool.
And being my mentor.
Yes.
By the way.
And then we've got Varun Sehgal, has been the Chief Information Officer and Assistant VP of Technology at Hostos Community College since 2006. He previously led global technology initiatives at Simpson Thacher and Bartlett and Capgemini Ernst & Young, and is involved in numerous initiatives around workforce development for technology sector skills and jobs. And then we've got William Floyd, Head of External Affairs for Google New York. Okay, so give them all a round of applause here. And we're going to take it from there. And so I'm going to start just, again, with real quick questions for them. They'll have some time to answer, and then we're going to throw it off. And also, for you guys, if there's something you kind of want to jump in on, please feel free. So this is like a sort of a chatty group of people, and they've all got awesome things to say. So for Angie, your first question. So there is sort of this well-documented trend that unconscious hiring biases play a big role in the lack of diversity in the tech field. What are you doing to address that or deal with that for Scholas grads?
Sure, thanks. At Scholas, something that we're very, very passionate about is thinking about diversity. And it's really interesting because I think the idea of the skills gap comes up a lot, and you hear about so many thousands of jobs that are unfilled and such high unemployment. But I don't actually really believe in the skills gap. I actually think it's about hiring bias. I think there's a lot of folks out there who can get those jobs, but they're not diverse. They're not the folks that we care about, and really highlight the good work that Google has done to shine a spotlight on where they're at, what it looks like, and what we can do. And so what we do at Scholas about a year and a half ago, and we've been around for 20 years, but about a year and a half ago we launched a corporate volunteer program. And so we work with about 400 or 500 corporate volunteers a year. And the idea is, let's bring them up to the Bronx. Let's demystify what the Bronx is all about, to Majora's point earlier. Let's demystify what diverse talent pipelines are. Let's demystify what it means to maybe not have a college degree, but have a high school diploma and some college. Let's really take apart what it means to have, what it means to be a tech worker. And that's really, really important. And I think that's where kind of bias and breaking down those myths is what we do. We also look a lot at just changing up employer hiring practices. And so one of the most vivid examples recently is one of our employers, very big employer, I will not name them, but they had a really rigid hiring process. And so part of that process was answering an online assessment with these deductive reasoning questions. So those classic question of two cars coming from different directions. One's at 30 miles an hour, one's at 55. When do they meet? I cannot answer that, and I have 2 Ivy League degrees. I'm not gonna expect, our students or really anyone, normal to answer that one. And so most of our students were failing that, but they were amazing, certified, great technicians. And so what we worked with that employer is we got them to change up that process. We got them to show our students, to prepare them for that interview set of questions. We got them to move those set of questions further down the interview process so that our folks, our diverse talent, could have a fighting shot at a skills-based job. And so that's what we do, and I have to highlight that we've got a bunch of awesome Per Scholas grads out in the audience, and you can see for yourself the wide diversity that they represent, but the talent that they do as well.
Now, I just wanted to jump in because you spoke about unconscious bias, and that's something that Google is very aware of, ironically. As Angie mentioned, we were the first company in the tech sector to reveal our diversity numbers, and we were woefully lacking in a number of areas. So we started to do a lot of deep thinking and self-assessment on our own part, and instituted a program on unconscious bias. So first off, bring the unconscious to light and acknowledge how we all have our own innate biases that we apply without even knowing when it comes to hiring folks. And then the second thing is then acting on it. So, figuring out how do we, broaden our talent pool, how can we change the way that we go and assess that talent, and then most importantly, creating an environment where culturally diverse people can feel like they can coexist. Or like we like to say, you can wave your Google freak flag here anywhere you want to. But those are really important things, and I think we all need to be active participants in unconscious bias.
Okay. I want to pick up on something there, because probably up until the last year and a half of my life, I've been the kind of, hidden face of hiring bias, working in the corporate world, particularly for investment banks and technology for the last 20 years. I don't think it's quite, not being an apologist, but it's not quite as simple as unconscious hiring bias. I think in working very closely with Per Scholas and the folks there, it's a lot to do with access as well. So having been in, I created the program with Per Scholas while I was at Barclays. I had no idea the folks were there or that the training programs existed, and the structural barriers in corporate hiring, and I'm not talking about cool places like Google, I'm talking about not cool places like banks, insurance companies, and who do the bulk of the hiring in technology. That's the lion's share of technology hiring doesn't exist at the cool companies, it's at the very decidedly unsexy companies, right? It's true. And the ability for someone who had come through a Per Scholas program or any other program to that resume to get on my desk, it was just literally impossible to get through all our university relationships, all our own hiring and corporate, and the relationships. Most of the people that I've hired probably in the last 10 years were a referral, and nobody coming through Per Scholas knew who I was. So I think that's why I like the Per Scholas program so much, is that they do focus on corporate partnerships and opening up those additional lanes of hiring that, frankly, the people there don't even know exist.
So I actually need to apologize. You were supposed to go down and give your 2-minute intro about who you were, which I totally forgot because I really wanted to ask your questions. So You are more than free to do that, even though I think each one of you did a little bit of that already. But Angie, if you want the opportunity, you might as well take it. We do have time.
I cede my turn to James.
I want to get in on the hiring bias question. I think we basically are all introducing a lot of what our respective companies do through a hiring bias lens, and the fact that there's companies and that they can address that is a super good thing. Much of what was said in the previous panel can be thought of as a bias in terms of access and where it gets first also. And our company, Startup Box, is tiny compared to most of the folks who have been up here today. And we operate not in that, tsunami of Googles and Verizons and big companies that are doing huge things. We're kind of surfing in that tube. We're in the trough of the wave right now. And that's where we've found a lot of strength. There's a lot of cool things you can do down there. With regard to hiring bias, our model is to do B2B tech services that are currently offshored, find the companies that are vulnerable to the losses that you get when you offshore. They're subtle, and there's not everybody who has those, but many do, and bring those jobs to the Bronx. And we put a minimum viable training package together so that we could hire as many people who come through the door. And one of the things that we found was way overqualified people were coming through the door than for what exactly we were hiring for in those jobs. So that's definitely an indication of a hiring bias. These were people who had tried and failed for various reasons. By being a B2B tech service, we assume hiring bias. We're too small to change it. We don't have the influence like a lot of other organizations do. But by being a B2B tech service, and we have our client's product in our home, in our lab, and our workers get a hold of it and treat it with great care and really give our clients good feedback, now the people inside of our clients' companies know who they're talking to on the other end. It's not like you just press a button and send it to India or someplace. You send it to the Bronx. You can meet those people in the Bronx. Why? You like them. You've got common interests. You see their reports coming in at 10 a.m. every day. You know they're on top of it. When the push comes to shove and they're looking for positions to fill, you might feel safer with somebody that you actually have created a no-risk working relationship with. And in the meantime, if you don't, we're still able to pay a decent wage to those folks to do the work anyhow. So the more clients we bring in, the more exposure, the more sort of Trojan horses that we make to get past the hiring bias without anybody even bringing up the word. That's Startup Box.
Okay, Alex.
Yeah. I'm happy to introduce LiquidTalent through a hiring bias lens. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Majora and James and William, pleasure to see you guys. LiquidTalent, we're building a mobile and web-based platform to connect hires with talent. We believe the future of work is going to look a lot different than what today's workplace looks like. We believe that we're moving into a more independent, mobile, 1099 independent contractor model than we have today and yesterday, which is more of a W-2, Monday through Friday, 9-to-5 based model. And that's for a variety of reasons. I think two of the biggest drivers of this is one is technology. We actually can now work anywhere from any time. That's not what it used to be. And the preferences have dramatically changed. Half of young people, 54% of millennials, want to start a company. It's a very entrepreneurial generation. They don't really subscribe to the same values as previous working generations, which is I'm going to clock in, I'm going to clock out, I'm going to be there for 40 years, I'm going to get my gold watch, and I'm going to retire. That's not the working reality we live anymore. It's less profit interest, it's less profit focus, and it's more about aligning with your passions and your values in a job right now for young people. And that's certainly not what it was before. So what we're building right now is a place where project-based work can flourish. We're building a platform at LiquidTalent that hires can come into the platform in a peer-to-peer way and find talent that's vetted through their social networks. In 4 to 5 days rather than 4 to 5 weeks, right? Headhunting and recruiters generally charge 20 to 30% to make these placements. Right now, we're charging 10% for the project-based fee. So it's a very exciting, mobile, fast, lifestyle-driven marketplace. We're building a community I liked what William said is kind of waving their own freak flags. That definitely resonates. I come from Google. I spent almost 8 years at Google, and when I left Google, I was looking for something like LiquidTalent. I was looking for a place where I could work independently and hang my hat as an independent professional. I didn't find it. It wasn't in TaskRabbit. It wasn't in LinkedIn. So I really decided to address my own problem and address those of others that I was seeing in my community and build this platform. In terms of a hiring bias and a hiring lens, we're leaning away from what college you graduated. We're leaning away from what your GPA was, what your SAT score was, and we're leaning into what you can actually do. Can you design? Can you code? Are you results driven? That's the stuff that I think employers and hires and jobs are looking for, are people that can get shit done.
Right.
It's not looking for someone that graduated from 2 Ivy Leagues and can't do arithmetic or whatever, you know.
And you tell him the answer. You know it.
It's a very.
It's gonna make you feel bad.
Angie and I are friends now. And please make fun of me all you want as well. It's a very different market, and it's exciting. I'll leave it at that.
So actually, well, I'll let Angie deal with you later. But in the meantime, Alex, I did want to ask you specifically, how do you see the LiquidTalent platform, which is pretty interesting? How do you think it's going to help support folks in the Bronx? And why?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's a few ways. You know, what we're seeing right now. So we've done 40 projects since we launched, and that was in October of 2013. We launched our beta product in May of 2014, and we've been able to do 40 projects that have totaled about $300,000 in value. We launched in July our V2 version, which we're really excited about, a whole new revamped look and feel. We've been active in recruiting partnerships that reflect underrepresented communities. I think that's first and foremost something that we really care greatly about. We've worked with Scholas, we've worked with Startup South Bronx. We're looking for organizations that are training this next wave of technical and creative talent. There's amazing boot camps that are popping up all over the place. There's online courses that are teaching this next wave of talent through Khan Academy, through General Assembly, through Codify. And it doesn't really matter where you live. It matters that you have a hunger and that you have what this previous panel was talking about, which is access to the internet, which is the ultimate kind of equalizer of gaining and accessing knowledge. So for us, it's really about casting our net and marketing towards organizations that are doing that work in those locations. And it's something that we really care about. This is not a place for the traditional person just to come on and thrive. We don't win at LiquidTalent, and I personally don't think the company is successful unless there is a flourishing, diverse marketplace of people from all walks of life. And it's something that's very much core to the company that we're building.
I'm not going to make fun of you, I swear. I just want to let everyone in the audience know that Alex, LiquidTalent is one of the companies that is a client of Startup Box. So whenever LiquidTalent is successful, they hire Startup Box. Dollars that you guys are generating come literally into Hunts Point and into people who didn't have jobs or bank accounts before. So that's how he's impacting the Bronx.
Cool. Thank you. So Varun, if you can speak a little bit about your role here at Scholas, and in particular, what did I say?
For Scholas.
We're going to take over the world.
There you go. At Hostos, and also, I think you're really interesting on this panel in particular because you have the perspective of being what is an anchor institution that could play a huge role in supporting tech talent pipeline in a very interesting way. So I'd love to hear you talk about that.
Certainly, thank you. So Hostos is an anchor institution. My role here is the Chief Information Officer and AVP for Technology. And part of what makes Hostos unique is that this institution was born from the community, from the demands of this entire South Bronx area. And so when it was made, there was really a resurgence for how do we get this community to the next level? How do we bring the citizens of this community out of poverty? How do we get them to a place where they can better themselves, overcome some of the biases that existed over 50 years ago, but still carry on in certain dimensions? And now it's time for a second resurgence. I mean, Hostos, as an educational institution, as part of the City University of New York, our mission is to help all of those from diverse backgrounds get to a better place in their lives, and not only for themselves, but for future generations. Because we all know, studies show that every household that has someone with a college degree ends up influencing future generations and the society many-fold times over. And so what does Hostos do in the community? Well, besides, of course, providing education in some of the most advanced fields when it comes to allied health, digital design, we're one of the only organizations in the Bronx which offers a digital game and digital design degree program. We were the first to offer that. Now other institutions, of course, are following suit. But we do a lot more. We reach out to all of the partner organizations. We've worked with Scholas in the past. I know Plinio very well. I worked with him on a grant many years ago. And we're also now trying to figure out, well, how do we create the talent pipeline in technology? The Bronx traditionally has not been looked at as a source for tech talent. Retail, services-based industries, and so forth, that's where the Bronx is. I mean, the mentality has been set such that, well, those are the jobs that we need to get into, so that's what we're going to train for, and those are the jobs that are available to us. But that's not true. The passion in this society and the skills that can be turned around in a very short time frame are so enormous that we've realized that through the development of a New York State apprenticeship program, which we've submitted a grant proposal for to be the first in the state to do so, we will be developing the pipeline not just for all of the organizations, but the bigger companies like Google, Startup Box, hopefully, LiquidTalent, and all of our other partner agencies, which can take this talent. And how are we going to get there? By working with them to determine what are the skills that you need. There is no sense in creating talent pools where the technology is either out of date or not in demand. We can create junior network administrators, but if all of those jobs are already taken, then what's the point? So if we need quality assurance testers, for example, or we need folks who know how to code mobile apps, that's where we're going to work very closely with our partner organizations to determine the need. What we do here at Hostos, we've created programs which incentivize the use of technology. We have a rewards points program where throughout the year, as students participate in technology-related workshops and so forth, they earn points. And in the spring, we hold a big bash where they all get technology products. Because besides, of course, having the infrastructure in place, I think our previous panelists mentioned, you need to have the endpoints. You need to have the laptops. You need to have the tablets. So we're working very closely within the organization and other organizations to determine how we get those endpoints to the users. We recently had a grant from the Verizon Foundation that helped us launch a technology student leadership boot camp. In 1 week, we took 8 students who had no background in technology, no background in video design, editing, or anything. And at the end of 5 days, they produced such an amazing piece of work using Macs, using Photoshop, and other software. We were blown away. So what that goes to show is that if the right guidance is available, if the right support structures are in place, we can truly make a difference in these students' lives and really help build that tech talent pipeline. I think the other area that we need to work very closely with in terms of our partners is the infrastructure service providers. What happens is, and this goes a little bit into both the digital divide as well as the hiring bias, a lot of individuals think that technology is too difficult, that we can't learn it, it's only for the geeks in Silicon Valley or Silicon Alley downtown, and it's an unsurmountable obstacle. It's not. We need to do a better job at bridging that gap between the perceptions as well as what they can and cannot do, and make it a can-do society here in the Bronx, because that's where we need to be. So part of what we think really needs to happen is that as a lot of our partner organizations develop their jobs, they need to develop them in a manner that allows our stay-at-home moms, our single parents, our folks who are taking care of their elderly parents here in the South Bronx with the access they need at home and not necessarily having to fear being away for long hours every day working in a location. That, I think, will go a long way in help bridging the issue where our Bronx native residents do not feel that they're ready to take on responsibility in the tech sector.
I love that your approach is not the very typical sort of train and pray approach to workforce development and job development that we often see in our borough and nationally, sadly. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Now, I have a question for Keith. Now, you were, still are, a part of a company that did do a lot of urban, or rather that did do a lot of offshore work.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you choose the Bronx?
Well, we chose the Bronx because the original idea, so what we're doing basically is the company that I joined and started up the software testing practice around is basically creating a cost-competitive alternative to offshoring. And so we've built out a 15,000 square foot facility down on 138th Street, sharing the building with Scholas, to outsource testing and development jobs that ordinarily would be sent to India, Far East Asia, Eastern Europe, and working with my relationships and colleagues that I have in banking and telco and insurance industry to basically outsource those jobs to us. And right now we've got about 150 seat facility ready, and then another 300 on top of that if we build out the third floor. The reason that I started working with Scholas was being introduced through our CIO at the time, who was on the Scholas board, was to create. I'd been living in Singapore for a couple years and spent a lot of time in India traveling and training folks there. And when I came out and met the people at the Scholas program, I was completely blown away at how talented and incredibly intelligent and a lot of initiative and all the stuff I was looking for everywhere else in the world was literally 20 minutes away from my office in Manhattan. So I pitched this idea to Barclays to then create it was just going to be a Barclays facility then, and as the banking sector does their biannual we're out of money, cut all our IT budget dance, I pitched the idea to Scholas to basically join a startup and create as a separate business. I think, so that was why I came here, really. I mean, because we're a for-profit business. We have a partnership with Scholas. We do a profit share with them. So we've agreed to hire 80% of the folks that are going to be in the facility will have come through the program. So we've created a private-public partnership with them, but we're a for-profit business. And I just want to, at the risk of sounding negative, but I think, if you look at, there was a report that the mayor's office put out a year ago, I believe, and it was about the tech ecosystem in New York. Mm-hmm. And the amount of, so that they divided jobs into tech jobs at tech companies, tech jobs at non-tech companies, and non-tech jobs at tech companies. So tech jobs at tech companies is like being a developer at Google. A tech job at a non-tech company is being a developer at Barclays. The amount of tech jobs at non-tech companies dwarfs the amount of jobs at Google, and like Google wouldn't hire me. I've worked in this business for 20 years. I couldn't get into Google. So it's no, I know I would get into Google. And I think that there has to be a level set. So when we bring people into our program, the Scholas program is grueling. It's not easy. It's 15 weeks. And then we drill you on top of that, and then we do like a 3-year apprenticeship to get you at bench with the industry. Mm-hmm. Because as much as we'd like to say, maker generation, everyone's an entrepreneur, the bulk of the jobs and where India and Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia is eating our lunch as a country are where those jobs are. And they're ones that require a little bit more enterprise technology knowledge. And you can't just go learn JavaScript for 4 weeks at a boot camp and expect to go work for Google. It's just not going to happen. So I think, we have to level set a little bit about the trajectory and the arc for when you're going. So our view is, let's bring those jobs here instead of, and create an ecosystem that we can employ the folks locally.
Awesome. So, and then the Startup Box also has another type of urban onshoring as well. So, James, could you talk a bit about your recruitment process and
Sure.
how that works?
I agree with everything that's been said here, especially with regard to there's a lot. Well, and this is my mentor also. As long as we're thanking our mentors here on the thing, and the one thing that Keith taught us when we were starting our idea, which is a minnow next to a pretty big fish, was concentrate on value. You're never going to beat on cost, and we really, really took those words to heart. And we looked at what is in the New York City tech ecosystem currently, and in addition to a lot of those tech jobs at non-tech companies and those tech jobs at tech companies, within the tech companies there's a whole bunch of them that are like under 40 people that are starting up in New York City. They're well capitalized, or they're working for really, really big media companies and subbing out stuff. They're dissatisfied for a number of reasons, whether it's timeline or cultural vernacular, if they have a really user experience heavy product, with the type of quality assurance services they can get by exporting the jobs. Not many people in that niche, that sort of entertainment, gaming, user experience niche, are here at all in America to fill that. And I hope many follow, and we have some vigorous competition. But in the meantime, we're taking as much as we can get to find these companies and say, hey, wouldn't you rather get this work done here? Getting the work done, though, also has to happen. You can't just say, oh, they've got a problem, I'll fix it, unless you've got the team that can fulfill. And we're not a big company. We don't have the beautiful partnership that they do, where you've got a well-established training entity that's pivoted over several technology changes and can do what a company like Doran Jones needs. We're tiny. And so when we got our team together and scratched our heads, how are we going to find people who can do this, who will work for what we can pay? Gaming came into the picture. One, because we thought that was going to be our major client base. It still is, but it's not all of them. But our now CTO, who was at that time just an advisor, Lancelot Chase, who is sitting right there in the second row, a former professional Halo player, said, why don't you throw some gaming tournaments to see what kind of people you have in the area that you might be able to work with if you're going to enter the games industry. You have people who love that product, who are passionate about it. And it was hilarious. The day after we rented our space, we had a Flappy Bird contest. We went on to do other things. And the reason that's so brilliant, and I bring it up, is not to be flip about, oh, we just hired gamers. We're working in a community that's been described in ways that Majora is hoping it won't be in the future, but is still right now, right? It's poor. And everything that being poor comes along with that, including low levels of educational attainment and higher levels of risk in any mistake you make. So people don't take as much risks in a lot of areas, as you were saying, even though they have the potential and the talent. So how do you get to those potentially hyper-talented people? And it turns out gaming crosses people from their teens into their 40s, a whole bunch of different groups any group of people that you can name that would be in the Bronx, there's a bunch of them who play games. And we found all kinds of things when we started exploring the gaming market, but the most important was when it comes to risk is that this is a group of people who, if they're gonna come out to one of our tournaments, we don't necessarily hire the winners, but we like people who have the embedded experience of try, repeat, fail, try to repeat, and fail until you succeed. And that's something that gets kind of beat out of people. If you fail sometimes in the South Bronx, you're pregnant and out of school, or you're just out of school because of money, or you're in jail, or failure comes at a much bigger price here. But this is a select group of people that have a positive success experience. There's a lot of camaraderie. Online network gaming is where a lot of young Black and Latino men have flocked to stay away from the stop and frisk on the street. There's a whole virtual social space that they're engaging in for very real reasons. But that also, again, makes them passionate about the product, makes them understand the nuances. They've seen product failure when it's out there. And so by throwing tournaments, we're able to not only observe people who try really hard, we can watch them interact with other people around them. If they're playing a team game, are they team players? Because our crews work in teams of about a half dozen, and it's really important to have good communication skills. And you wind up with a group of people that end up having, some don't even have a diploma, a high school diploma. Some may have been in jail. Others have 4-year degrees, sometimes from this school, who are applying for these jobs. And so educationally, all over the map. Some of them come from Scholas, and some of our people, we suggest they go to Scholas. It's a varied group of people that it's our job, our responsibility just to be a viable company, but also to provide this social benefit we believe in, is to collect all of that talent, manage it in a way that downtown and Brooklyn industries see a value in what we can, to get to what Keith told us, concentrate on the value. So now they don't know that they've got a single mom working for them. They don't know that they have somebody who went to prison or has got bullet holes in them or anything like tattoos that would scare them if they were actually going to hire them. But they have all of these people serving an incredibly valuable function that are keeping them on deadline. We're more expensive, but the value that we bring in terms of them satisfying either investors, if there are small companies in the city that get $10 or $20 million VC, and they've got somebody breathing down their neck saying, come on. So we're part of speeding up and improving the quality of their supply chain, getting their stuff successful, and then making sure that money comes here.
So James, you spoke about how do you alleviate risk for both the clients or the company, but also for the folks that are entering into the tech talent pipeline that might be a little hesitant to enter it. And William, you also spoke about that Google did a pretty risky thing, releasing its data, about lack of diversity. And so doing that and then some of the other things that Google's been working on to alleviate that, why, could you speak a little bit more about that, and in particular why other organizations aren't sort of following that, those challenges?
Well, I actually think that there are more and more actors in the tech industry who are following suit because, and just to be honest, we're among friends, or at least in a safe space. It's it's not because of the moral imperative. It really is a business imperative.
Absolutely.
So, you know, if you want to be a successful tech company like Google, you want to develop products that impact everyone's lives. You know, we deal in scales of, you know, millions and millions, right? But if you're going to appeal, or if you're going to develop a product that's going to appeal and be useful to everyone, you need to know who your user is.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to know your user, you might need to have someone who might look like your user or have the same experience as your user. I mean, we all, I think, have the experience of, you know, something's wrong in your life and you want it fixed, and you realize, like, oh, maybe there's someone else who wants the same thing that I do. Well, that writ large is what diversity means for us. We need, if we want to build strong products that are resilient and that are impactful, we need to be diverse, and that's what the tech industry, I think, is coming to realize as well.
Okay. So I'd love to, if anybody has questions, you can throw it out to the audience. I can hog everybody for forever, but if you can line up, we need to record it, so you've got to ask your question there.
Hi, panel.
Hello.
You sound very wonderful. I have some concerns, and I want to direct my question to Varun, but I want to start with William. William, what percentage of employees at Google write code?
What percentage of employees at Google write code? I don't know the exact number, but let's say that software engineers, IT technicians, computer scientists, let's say there's 60%, 70%.
Okay, so there's 40% of other people that do a lot of other things to make Google successful. I just came from a meeting today with DC9, the group that does glaziers, painting, and everything, unionized people. Right now in New York City, there are $2 trillion of projects going on in construction. They are still doing many things today as they did when they built the pyramids. Over at Sandy, they're starving to get those projects off the ground, right? They can't find people, they can't coordinate efforts, et cetera. And I hear a bias coming out that technology is about gaming, it's about this, but sometimes it's putting on boots and a hard hat and going out there and saying to people, you know, we've got some technology that can help you. Of those $2 trillion, remember, they factor in 20% loss because of inefficiency. Think about those numbers, guys. That's $400 million that's just going to get thrown away. So if we start, and that's what my company has done, we've turned our efforts toward the construction industry. They need help. Now, worldwide, $6.5 trillion per year gets spent on construction. So just keep that in mind as you think about you, especially for Scholas, the people you want to train, where they're going, the things that they might need. Just a thought.
Okay, thank you.
Majora, can I do a
Yeah,
quick?
please.
So great point, and that's actually very much how we think about what we decide to train in. So I often describe the areas that we train in as the rather unsexy part, often are kind of on the top of the list, but they're great jobs, great upward mobility, and that's exactly the space that we want to be in. Telecom is probably about 20% of our placements, and we train over 500 people per year, so it's really critically important. Over the past few days, I was with, I spent some time with General Assembly, and we were talking that what could actually be really useful for the field is literally a taxonomy of all those IT jobs, so that we get away from just thinking it's the coding and the programming and the gaming, but really like creating a map that actually could be used not just for the training providers out there, but for employers or students, for consumers, so that there's a real sense of what these IT jobs are, and the spectrum is really much more illuminated, because I don't think it's terribly clear right now, and I think it's just super easy to think about tech as coding or programming, and that's not what we live, and it's not, I agree, not really where the majority of jobs are.
But in defense of my, unsexiness, through our program, and in a couple of years' time, working for us, we've got people who are making $80,000, $90,000 a year, which are great with no degrees. These are people who were security guards. We've got a gentleman who's making $90,000 a year who was before he went through the Scholas program, was a photo tech at Walgreens. So, and that's in 2 years' time. So it can be done. You know, that's not a coding job either, and that's a career path that he's on.
Can I?
It's not all bad, Angie.
So just to add to everything that's been said, the state apprenticeship program that Hostos has applied for is really focusing on those middle skills jobs, not necessarily the full coders and so forth, but what are all those vacancies, what are all those gaps that exist that other companies, not tech companies, but your traditional organizations, your construction firms, your business firms, your marketing firms and so forth, that do need skill sets which aren't being filled today. And I think there was probably close to 17 or 18,000 jobs just in the near vicinity, which were going completely unfilled because those skills were not available. So we're focusing a lot on that, but what we're also focusing on is the soft skills. What are the other skills that an IT person, the techie, the geek, needs to know in order to be productive in the workplace? The time management, the project management, the team management skills and so forth. So we're really going to create a ready-to-hire individual as part of this apprenticeship program.
Good evening. Cornell Green, Community IT Solutions, and Angie, I haven't forgotten that I owe you a proposal. I'm going to get that to you. I'm going to piggyback on what this gentleman, who didn't share his name, so I don't know how to address him, addressed. Within New York City, 90% of the payroll enterprises are a staff size of 20 or fewer. Now, it sounds to me like the focus here is kind of on the SME space, the middle to higher tier sort of businesses, and more established type of job titles. But it seems to me that as you brilliantly mentioned, we are in what I call the post-employee age, where everyone has to look at themselves as an independent contractor and an entrepreneur. What can you folks on this rather august panel say to speak to the fact, because I feel that the tech job is like the factory job of the 20th century, that a lot of entry-level first jobs for non-specific people, this is going to create an opportunity to turn this economy around. But what opportunities can be created for those 90% of businesses here who may not have a quality assurance position or a formalized position of IT, but as you all know, every business in the 21st century is going to need to leverage technology, particularly the micro enterprises, in order to be competitive in the 21st century.
Can I?
Please.
So, forgive me if I didn't communicate this better earlier, but that's our sweet spot, is those under 50 employee who are never going to put a QA person on a desk in their company because of the sporadic nature. And again, that goes to our greatest responsibility is proving value to enough companies that are in, I learned a new word, SME, today, that we've got the bulk of them that we can produce, if not a factory job, it still is a little bit, we try to be more 9 to 5, but we're realizing that we're a transitionary kind of space right now in the economy, and this is the solution that we made this year. It might look very different next year, but we're huge proponents of people who can adapt at whatever scale they happen to be operating at.
Yeah, I would just say it's a great point, Cornell. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, we've used Startup Box for our QA. At LiquidTalent, we're a startup, we're resource constrained. There wasn't a job opportunity for a full-time QA person, but we're building a tech company that needs QA. We can access the talent that James and Majora are kind of combing and curating in a cost-efficient way, right. in a time-managed way that allows us to get what we need, allows them to get what they need, and it doesn't have to be a W-2, contract. That's not the world that we're living in anymore. So QA is one example that we've been using, but that goes for a lot of different things. And as people continually think about themselves as their own business, as Jay-Z said, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. That reality, that working world, we're going into a whole new paradigm. We're going into a whole new paradigm. I mean, this is as dramatic as going from a farming-based economy to an industrialized-based economy. The shift from a W-2 economy to a 1099 economy is just underway. 34% of Americans identify themselves as freelancers or a hybrid of a freelancer. Did I say 53 million Americans, 34%? I mean, it's dramatic. It's going to go to 40% by 2020. It's a mega trend of the century, and it's really a lot of fun being integral and being a part of it.
To counter that a little bit, sorry, that might be true for a segment, but by and large, the career-based technology jobs, like Barclays does not consider everybody an entrepreneur, right? And there were 25,000 people in the investment bank technology department, just in the investment bank, 25,000 people, in technology. Those are massive numbers. That's one department in one bank. Right, so and there's a huge amount of opportunity that exists in the what I call the big, fat, unsexy middle, right? Which is like long-term career jobs. Those segments are just growing year on year. The software testing industry is a multi-billion macro trends towards maker economy and boot camps. But right now, that is being dwarfed by where those jobs are, and those jobs are unfilled, and there are lots of countries that are doing it, and I think one of the things that I would like to point out to kind of put it on the spot a little bit because it just started to turn up, is that I think the public sector, particularly around education and their use of technology, that's our money, and they hire tons and tons of people in technology, and they should be using stuff like Scholas and hiring people to come through those programs, because the public sector could really utilize a lot of this stuff to give people a start. And apprenticeships, I'm sure we'll talk about that, but there's lots of opportunity to get starts in technology and alternative ways and straight into, 90% of startups fail, right? So there's lots of other opportunities for that. So I hate to be the, go ahead, somebody else tell me how great it is.
Well, I would like to just play the middle, is that it's, we're dependent on people like you and others who may be in the audience who know maybe what are the services that the city, since that is our money, could be outsourced into places like the Bronx. So we don't know enough about the city and its technological needs. I think there's an expert in the room on it now. But to be able to figure out what are those things that we could land here would be fantastic.
So I just wanted to add that don't think about tech jobs as having to be in a tech or non-company. We have to think about this as an ecosystem. And the fact that tech can be, and it may sound like a bad word, but it really isn't, it can be outsourced to service-specific organizations. As more and more of these smaller companies that you've spoken about, they should be focusing on their core business, their population, their customers. There are organizations out there that focus solely on technology service provisioning. These programs, the talent pipeline, can certainly feed into those because everyone needs a plumber. You don't own a plumber necessarily if you're a small. Exactly. So I think that as long as we have an open mind to which verticals, which scale of organizations do need permanent employment in terms of technical skills, and those where we can help provide the skills pool for organizations which are focused solely on technology service, we'll be able to find a good mixture that'll solve all of these needs.
This is awesome that there's so many options out there. Soon, hopefully the Bronx will be the place where all the tech jobs are being filled from. So there you go. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Question.
My name's Jacob Morris. A while back, I would say about 10 years ago, I proposed a science center complex for the Bronx. Actually, right across the street at the Garrison Playground, next to Hostos, with a planetarium, science playground, exhibition space. So a question for the panel, preliminary question. How many of you guys are familiar with the New York Hall of Science in Flushing Meadows, Queens?
Been there a few times.
Everybody? Do you know how many kids from the Bronx go to that science center? 2%. 2%. Access. I agree with Keith about the criticality of access. You knew I was going to say that. Money. If the kids can't afford to go, or if just the transportation is difficult, So the kids can't afford to go to the Rose Center. It's too expensive. Kids from the Bronx don't go to the Rose Center. They don't get to the New York Hall of Science. I've been saying something for a long time. Inspiration leads to motivation, leads to learning. So if a young kid goes to a science center and gets inspired, then they're motivated, and then they want to go into science and technology and math and engineering, because it's a dream that they can reach and seek. For the panel, I believe that you guys bring something to the table in regards to the shaping of kinds of exhibits and participatory type of exhibits, which is the new trend in science centers, that the children participate in using the exhibits. And I would like to see from people like yourselves helping to shape new kinds of exhibits here in the Bronx with this proposed science center. Would you guys be interested in that? That's my question. And that's to every member of the panel.
Go
So
ahead.
the short answer is yes.
Yeah.
Because I agree with you. If we want to make the tech talent look like New York, if we want it to be broad and self-sustaining, we're going to have to inspire the next generation. And via cultural institutions, just like the New York Hall of Science or the Museum of Math, and there are other unlikely cultural institutions that don't have science in their name, but actually do lots of stuff.
Very good friends.
We are. We're partners, and Scholas is actually the landlord for Doran Jones. And so this 15,000 square foot urban development center, we actually raised the money to build that out from philanthropy, from very generous philanthropy. In 6 months, we raised about $1.5 million. And part of the reason that the philanthropic community was so excited to build out that type of space, yes, for a company, but I think Keith has wild ideas that he will share with you in a minute on how to program that space and not make it this cloistered 15,000 square foot center, but really make it, where possible, kind of much more of an open idea. And that, again, is how we really envision the partnership, that this is about leading by example, showing the community that this is real. This isn't a Manhattan thing. It's not a Dumbo thing. This is a Bronx thing in the middle of Port Morris, across from a hot dog factory. We're going to have, and we have, an amazing space where great things are happening. That's real, and that's powerful, and it hasn't been done before.
Just to add on that a little bit, or elaborate, I think was the word. So some of the things we actually are doing already. So I did a career day over at the Melrose Middle School about a month ago, and talked to the students about technology and development, and how to get into tech, and gave them all sorts of great role models they should look into, and gave them some homework. And then we talked to the principal there, and we're in the negotiating with the wonderful folks at CI around actually building an app for the school to manage their schedule and stuff, and actually have the students from CI help build it in our space, and have some of the students in the middle school actually get involved in testing it. We're going to do a tech day for the school at the we call it the Urban Development Center, and we're going to teach them how to test robots and stuff like that. So we're already trying to get involved in the community, because we've talked about that a lot, that if it's just a closed door, great, tax revenue, blah blah blah. If it's not a community center, we're really going to miss a trick there, and make it open for meetups and all sorts of cool stuff. So
Awesome.
Your excitement.
Thanks. Go on now.
Good evening, my name is Nikki Torado. So 2 things, malarkey, propaganda, tech jargon aside, I feel like there's a huge tech talent pipeline already existing in the Bronx. So the panel, in my opinion, shouldn't be about creating, it's about enriching and strengthening that, and how do we do that? So I've spent the last 5 years on my digital soapbox speaking at conferences in the United Kingdom as well as in the United States. How did I do that? I'm not a coder, I don't write kick-ass gaming applications, I'm not a graphic designer, I speak people's language. And so with these developers, I think it's a matter of connecting them to open source tools and technologies, and how can we make their life easier easier. And QA jobs, I know 2 people that have went to Scholas, and they're happy. I don't think it's not a sexy job. Sexy is subjective. Like, some people think I'm sexy, some people think I'm not.
I was referring to myself.
It's super. Keith, you're hot. I'm sure you're going to get someone's number later. The point of the matter is that I think that we really need to focus on speaking developers' languages, speaking designers' languages, and how do we do that? Digital.nyc, IBM has done a great job with that publication. AliWatch is a cool publication. Why wasn't Bronx Tech Meetup in that publication? Also, BuzzFeed, Thrillist, the things that developers and designers are reading today, they're not reading the New York Times as much. I mean, I do, but I'm weird like that. Those publications and like, we have to speak their language. And I mean, I've spent 25 years in the Bronx. I was born and raised here. I've traveled to the US and UK, and I came back home. I have an affinity for this borough. And as far as being underrepresented, if you go outside right now, there are 2 million people with flags on their cars voting for the Puerto Rican raiders on Sunday. We're not underrepresented. It's just a matter of getting us all together for one cause. So I think we need to start with the simple things and start communicating to developers and people that are in technology that may not know how to code, because I tried coding and I suck at it. I play to my strengths. But speak to the people that we're all technology evangelists. Like, everyone has an iPhone. Everyone has an Android phone. Everyone is connected to tech in some way. I think it's a matter of making the Bronx, Keith, sexy so that people stay here, because majority of people are not tech nomads. They're leaving and they're commuting to the city. All these empty seats are developers and designers that would have been here, but they're commuting all the way to the city to get to work. So I think it's a matter of keeping it in the Bronx. There's already people doing it, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox now.
Yay. But thank you for being on your soapbox. And if you haven't already, you should join Bronx Tech Meetup, because we have been in it. And also, just to let you know, Sweetie Pie, Startup Box actually did the quality assurance for digital.nyc. So we've been representing in a very big way. So I just want to let you know. All right, so join.
And we were the featured startup on the launch day of the
And we were the
website.
featured startup, day one.
So in
that was us.
defense of the city.
And Startup Box, the Doran Jones were both in Wired as well. So.
Yes.
That's true. So we're getting out there.
So we're out there. We know the talent. That's the thing. That's what this is all about. So yes, you are there. You are a beautiful representation of that, and I am delighted that you're here. Come on, baby. I'm delighted you're here too.
Hello.
Hey.
How can you top that performance, huh?
Right?
I'm Carol Gonzalez. I am actually the president of the National Society of Black Engineers in Lehman College.
Awesome.
This gentleman right here is our business diversity chair for Lehman College as well, for our club.
Yay.
And just to let you guys know, we had a hackathon. We have had 2 hackathons already that involved all the CUNY colleges. And I just have a simple question. What are you guys' ideas of actually getting interns to work in your companies? Like, what would be the requirements? Because we have a lot of students who are very into tech that create apps, that create web apps, that create iOS apps, Android apps. So me having all this proof that I have the PowerPoints and everything, what would be your requirements for these students to be able to get their foot in the door as being interns or full-time positions? Anybody?
Yeah, I'm happy to address. I mean, part of LiquidTalent's talent community is young people that want internships. It's not just project-based paid work. It's internships, paid internships, non-paid internships, credit-based internships. It's something that we care a lot about and something that we want to continue to usher through our platform. We've brought on a few interns this summer. We brought in a couple of interns last summer. It's an amazing way to help us grow our company. And ensure that we're building relevant products for the future of this consumer tech industry. When I was an intern, I was really treated well. I want to kind of pay that forward. I'm sure all of us on the panel here when we were younger got some chances. I think it's really about getting your foot in the door, and it's about being hungry and motivated. It's about creating value without necessarily asking. It's about giving and then maybe getting down the road. But internships are just a fantastic way to get experience, build your portfolio, build a network, talk the talk. I think it's a great point and something that we want to continue to foster more at the company that we're building.
Can I just answer? As a small company, it's really, like a larger company can have an entire onboarding process, and there's some great ones that do amazing internship programs. They recruit them from college campuses. Small companies, it's hard enough for us to just manage day to day to bring in somebody that might be a not talented, and us having to train them, we just don't have the bandwidth. The interns that we have taken, whether it's been on the consulting side or Startup Box, are those people who, regardless of their level of education or their skills, certifications, or degrees, or chances of getting one, are those who took the time to get to know our business, our particular business. They don't show up saying, can I have an internship, what should I do? They show up saying, you know, I studied you in my class project, I picked your company, you mean something to me for these reasons, and I think I want to learn more about here. Is there anything I can do while I'm learning that? And so that is a completely different conversation, and it doesn't have to do with expensive training. It's get a kid on the internet and research us. It's not hard to find out information on almost anybody through LinkedIn and any kind of press that you have, but almost none, I'm going to say a small single percentage, do that step of researching who we are to make it easier for us to be able to share what we know.
And I would say, I mean, one of the great things about the information age is that there is so much available. So to give you some specifics, if you want to get hired as a developer or do an internship as a developer, do some stuff on Code Academy, get a GitHub account, and just start networking your ass off. And it's really hard work, but everything you need to know to be a successful developer, if that's what you want to do, is already out there. You know what I mean? It's all laying around you. You just got to get out there and hunt it down and find it. And that's one of the great things about that. It's like we struggled at this all the time at Barclays or UBS or Citigroup, places I've worked. We can't get people to share knowledge with each other in the corporate structure, but they'll go out and post their freaking source code on GitHub for free so they can get a badge. You know what I mean? It's like, so, you know, there's lots of great stuff out in the ecosystem for you to use. So that's my advice to everybody. And then network your ass off.
Also, thank you. I have a question. Would you guys like to join us in our next hackathon that's coming up in October? It's on October 16th to the 17th, and the students will actually it's a 24-hour hackathon we're gonna have, and you're actually gonna get to see fully developed Android apps, iOS apps, and web apps that we're gonna be having presentations on. So if you'd like to join us, I would love it. I would love it if you guys came in and saw what we could do.
Definitely, thank
Yeah,
you.
it would be cool. And if you have anybody that can develop in Python, have them please call me.
Okay. Everyone. So I'm also a member of the Nesby Lehman chapter, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm an adopted son of the Bronx. I've been here for quite a while. You, Miss Carter, actually spoke at my graduation in 2009.
Oh, that was a long time.
Do you know what school that was that you spoke at? Or sorry to put you on the spot. It was Bronx Science.
Oh!
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Reach it. Okay.
Bloomberg was on the stage as well.
I remember.
Yeah. So since I've graduated, I went to Binghamton Upstate. I came back to the Bronx.
Yay.
I'm trying to stay here as long as possible if people are nice to me.
We'll keep you. Don't worry. We'll be very nice.
And
we need you.
I actually studied African studies. I was a liberal arts major in college. And actually, before high school, I was into programming. I would just pick up a book. I would do Hello World. And then I would try to do the next thing. And then my program would crash. Then I would move on to JavaScript. And then, I learned HTML. That's one thing that it was pretty easy to learn. JavaScript, I would learn a little bit. And then I would reach a block where I couldn't go any further. Then I would go to animation, and I would download the program, and I would try to do something. And of course, the same story. So one thing that I learned from that was that now, actually looking back at my old self, and now I'm where I'm actually doing computer science as a second bachelor's degree. I'm not even getting a master's. I wanted to get a really strong grounding in computer science. And looking back at myself, I know that if I had the mentorship that many of the tech professionals here provided at the time, I might have built another Tumblr. Bronx Science graduate, Bronx Science dropout actually built Tumblr, by the way. So I might have done something like that at a young age if I had that mentorship. So I'm wondering, so we talked about internships, which is a really great topic, and in that, a small thing there is that, and I noticed from a lot of the students I go to school with, most of my colleagues cannot afford to take an unpaid internship. So that should not even be in the discussion. unless there's some sort of supplement that goes with that. There's a different mindset that needs to be taken when reaching out to students who come from a background of that many of the students I go to school with do. Many of them are struggling to pay bills at home, struggling to pay for school or to even get to school. And that is something that needs to be solved. But in terms of mentorship, I wonder if people are thinking about a scalable way to provide that internship while people are in school. I know students who are good at code and don't really know how they're going to get a job, because that's not what schools are here to teach us. They're not here to teach us to get a job. They're teaching us skills, very important, how to learn to code, and literally how to learn to code, not even how to code, literally like the theory behind it. So how are we bridging that gap between the skills that we're learning in school and the real world skills that we're going to need in work besides internships? I think mentorship is a great way to do that.
Is there a question in somewhere?
Was that a question?
It is a question. So like in terms of how would you implement the 5-minute dialogue I just gave?
Would someone on the panel, actually, maybe?
So sounds like a great startup idea.
Right. Well, I mean, I wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. I got fun time.
Viable.
But you
So I
should join
did want to
them.
address your concern about the educational approach to technology. We've recognized that here, and it's not just in CUNY, it's in most higher education institutions. And part of what we're trying to figure out is how do we become more agile in how we adjust our educational models? How do we adjust our curriculum to really meet the more practical needs of our employer partners, whether they're in the public sector, the private sector, or wherever, to make that graduate degree, that degree that you get when you walk off that platform, more useful day one, not where you then have to go and get supplemental skills just to be ready for the workforce. Now, in the interim, what we're really hoping is that through programs like the apprenticeship program, continuing ed programs, Scholas has, again, numerous workforce readiness programs, to take your skill sets either while you're in school for free, at no cost to you as an individual, to really then graduate not just with the degree that the institution is providing you, but use some of these ancillary programs to have the skill sets you need so you can knock on any one of these doors and say, I have the skills that you told my educational institution you need, here they are, hire me. So that's kind of, again, talking about that whole ecosystem and creating those linkages between the educational providers and the employers of the future to make you a more worthwhile candidate, because the competition's not decreasing. We all know that. So if you're walking out with anything less and you haven't done all the steps that Keith mentioned before, which is taking the initiative, it's going to be even harder for you to get one of those high-paying, high-skilled jobs. So it's kind of a combination between making the awareness to all of you as future employees and the partnerships between the educational providers and the private employers.
And if I can just add, in our small way, with our small company, mentorship is almost a byproduct of the commercial activity. And that's sort of how, the only way we could accomplish it. And how it manifests is I hear secondhand through the grapevine in our, at our shop that some of our clients are taking our employees out for burgers and beers and checking out what they're doing outside of the work that they do for us. We don't set that up. Like I said, there's a very risk-averse. They say that you should be a mentor and you should be mentored, or, because no one buys that from us, at least.
So, Dirk, do we have time for 2 more quick questions? Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, distinguished panelists and everyone here today. Thank you very much. My name is Adam Lobel. I'm Director of Ecosystem at Sehgal. My question is about team communication to solve big problems, both local and global. One of the things that I really like about this panel is that I feel there's a lot of cooperation, cross-organizational cooperation. Competition is also important. I believe that it stimulates innovation, and that complementarity is really beautiful. I first learned about complementarity from Professor at UC Berkeley, Arnold Schultz, in 1998 in a class called Ecosystemology. Professor Schultz has passed, but he went to, I believe, a one-room schoolhouse in Minnesota. So all the grades were together. There was a lot of sharing of ideas. And he taught a lot about complementarity, holism, reductionism, competition, cooperation. And so I just have, my question is about what type of communication platform do we need to get this sort of cross-functional, cross-organizational cooperation on the table? How do we find the missions that need to be solved and attach the right teams to those missions? I believe I heard taxonomy of skills, you mentioned that. So how do we sort of create those opportunities to solve those problems? And basically, ideas, you don't want ideas just to stop in chat. How do ideas go into a conversation that goes into a meeting with deliverables that can be tracked? We talked about quality assurance. And so there are people from all different organizations here. And I just wanted to know from your experience, because I'm learning about this, how do we create the cross-functional, cross-organizational teams, and what type of communication do they need to solve the world's greatest problems and local problems here in the Bronx?
Yeah.
If I
Be email, I email with people, or I go on LinkedIn, or I do Facebook groups. The question is more, there's this diverse ecosystem, we sometimes lose the diversity, and one part of the diversities you can lose is tradition and wisdom. Is part of what you can lose.
So how do we ensure collaboration in
So
whatever means
I'll give
that
you
they've
one example, and then I've talked for too long. I lived in Japan for several years. One of my friends is in Fukushima. He works with local traditional artisans who are restoring communities of artisans that do lacquerware. They're sustainable lacquer trees, the Asian lacquer tree. They grow them in groves. And I've been friends with him for many years, and I work at Harlem Garage on 118th. And one of the organizations there, the co-founders are women. So it's a woman-owned business. They're creating a global map and tours of community businesses and nonprofits around the world.
Okay.
And I sort of connected them through Skype and email. But what are the ways you guys do that kind of great work to solve problems and to bring knowledge and wisdom to the forefront? Thank you.
Great.
So, to me, a lot of what I've based my training and mentoring ethos around is some work that was done by he's the professor of sociology in Wales right now, and Harry Collins, and he wrote a book a while ago called Tacit and Explicit Knowledge. And it's basically defining, how much of what we know can actually be transferred via medium, via experience, and how much can be written down and transferred via non-tacit mediums. And it's by and large, most of what you can learn from people and experience can be transferred is through actually working alongside people, communicating and seeing it being done. We'd take I'll do it, you watch me, you do it, I'll watch you, now you do, and then we'll do it together, right? So I think in terms of communication mediums, running large, diverse and dispersed, corporate teams, I've had thousands of people work for me all over the planet. I don't think we need more communication mediums. I think we need to use the ones we have. And one of the great things about something like Meetup, right? So what does Meetup do? It brings people together. That's an important part of this. And it's just, I think the kind of serendipitous or luck part of getting the right people in the right place at the right time. If I wouldn't have worked for the CIO at Barclays at the time when I did, and he happened to get on the board of Scholas, none of this great stuff would have happened. So I think it's really creating opportunities for people to come together as opposed to trying to focus on communication mediums as more about actually getting people into a room. I'm a big fan of that, but.
Right, and just second what Keith just said. I mean, at Google, we're a big technology company that operates large, humongous virtual platforms. But at the core, the nucleus of the creative process for us, it's actually face-to-face. And we design environments, campuses, that create serendipitous accidents where unlikely people might sit down and dine together, they might sit down and grab a cup of coffee, and through that experience is where information is exchanged, or more importantly, where the next new idea might come from. So actually, it doesn't really happen on email for us. It happens in the hallways, or as Alex knows, it actually happens in the cafeterias because we're always eating.
We
are.
At a bank, it's the bar.
A fantastic example of that is AdSense. AdSense is a multi-billion-dollar revenue driver for Google. It happened over a pool game, right? These are the things that when these things happen. Salesforce was an idea that came when the founder was swimming, right? A lot of these wonderful, inspirational things happen when you're not at your cubicle. It's not at your desk, not a laptop. It's when you get off of it. You know, our technology is an app and a website, but we're trying to facilitate and foster real-time, in-person connection. Because that's, you know, when you look someone in the eye, you learn a lot more than an email or a text message or even a Skype, for that matter. I will say, though, in terms of digital tools, Slack has changed the way that we run our company. It's a fantastic tool. It was built in 6 weeks. It's worth $2.1 billion right now. It's a mobile app and a desktop app that's really facilitating wonderful conversations and something that's, I think, reinventing the way email is happening. So check that out. But at the end of the day, it's really about the in-person experience, and I can't say that enough. I do want to say that conversation is going to be continued at the Future of Work conference that we're facilitating on November 3rd at the Bronx Law, Government, and Justice School down the street. We just came from there coming into this meeting, and I invite all of us in this room to be a part of that conversation on November 3rd to talk about what does the future of work look like in 2020 and 2030, and really look forward in that Bucky, you know, viewpoint. I went to UC Berkeley, and I appreciate that comment. But please do join us on November 3rd for LiquidTalent Untapped, the future of work in the Bronx.
All right, thank you. It's all about the people. Yay, imagine that. Cool. Okay, last one.
Hello again. My name's Brogan. I'm from Assemblyman Michael Blake's office again. And if you know the Assemblyman, he's a very vocal and active representative, so I hope I'm serving him well by him not being here. So my question actually goes back a little bit, backtracking to intellectual and immaterial labor that you're all talking about. So we keep talking about sort of this ecosystem of an idea, and I think it's really important to be critical when we're talking about the development and the increased, activity of intellectual and immaterial labor. And the fact that most of that labor only exists because of the physical labor that creates the devices and the technology that you all utilize as a platform for developing your technology. So my question for you all is, how feasible do you think it is, and what types of initiatives do you think could exist in creating quality and wage-paying jobs and labor jobs in areas like the Bronx to develop these types of systems and to develop the devices? Because often they're outsourced, and that type of labor is in different communities and very low-wage environments and very low-income environments. So with companies like yourselves and organizations like yourselves functioning highly off of the intellectual and immaterial labor, but relying on the creation of devices to be able to do that, what types of initiatives can you see happening to support quality labor in the physical sense?
So you're asking if we're going to move an iPhone factory to the South Bronx from Shenzhen?
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking how can you support a better work environment for those type of labor positions, being that the only way that you can function as an intellectual company is by utilizing that as a platform.
I'm going to defer to Google on that one, because we're not even remotely close to what the kind of sphere of influence that Google can work in. But I'm not really sure what I could do to affect that.
You vote with your dollars. I mean, that's one way. Make sure organizations that you support are there's equity. There's I try to vote with my dollars, and I align with organizations that I think do the right thing. So that's at least one thing you can do in daily behavior. But I'll let William take this one over.
Wow, I was about to say.
The final word. No pressure.
I thought there was an air of camaraderie. Apparently.
See, I was just more straight about it.
The short answer is I don't know. That's it, and it's a great question. But it did prompt me to think about one of the things that what we tried to do to help elevate and broaden and diversify the tech talent pipeline, which is just try to affect the education system. So just a small example that we hope grows to be a big one is CS First. We created an open source curriculum that teaches middle school kids, exposes them to the fundamentals of CS, And this goes to the larger point that we were talking about creating a strong ecosystem, and that's not just rhetoric. It really does create a rising tide that helps all companies, be there, the big fat unglamorous part of the spectrum or not. But CS First is a tool that we've used to try to reach kids, to show them that there's an opportunity for them here in the tech sector, and it could be here at home. It doesn't have to be here abroad, with the hope that it'll inspire them to then take the next step. It could be doing quality insurance, it could be gaming, it could hopefully be computer science. But that's just one way that we try to at least infect the environment.
I appreciate your answer. Maybe I should clarify. So my question is regarding, so we're all kind of you're supporting.
Oh, sure, now you're going to clarify. Thanks, pal.
So just to clarify, my question is, we're having a large conversation about the development of labor that is highly intellectual and immaterial labor. So how can companies like yourselves and organizations like yourselves, with the production of that type of labor and the surge of that type of need of labor, how can you simultaneously support the physical labor and the industrial labor that is required for these types of industries to even exist?
So again, it sounds like you're asking us, like, how do we affect, by being an application developer, the labor costs and international trade relationships we have with China, which make the infrastructure that app lives in, or the Android, sorry, Android phone, there, right? And I think that is, a very complex and integrated problem that has a lot of moving parts. That, again, you can vote with your dollars, but it's like if you don't want to have people working for pennies on the dollar in China to make your socks, your $8 pack of 10 socks at Walmart, but you don't want to pay $30 for an 8-pack of, that could move the factory back to the U.S. You want to keep paying, $6 for that pack of socks. There's lots of economic factors and dependencies and all those things. It's a very, very, very complex problem you have now, which I don't think we have remotely the amount of time to discuss.
What I wanted to add to that is we're not a localized economy anymore. I think what we need to understand is that every aspect of what we do does have an impact nationally, globally, and otherwise. So to simply say that by somehow magically bringing back the manufacturing jobs that create some of these devices at the same cost that we're getting them today and making it still affordable for the masses, you have to think about the fact that that's helped give rise to the middle class. So a lot of what we're doing around the nation and the fact that it is now a global economy when it comes to the manufacturing and so forth has actually helped this economy, has helped the citizens of this country move upward. So it's all about balance. We don't want to get too caught up into why are so many jobs going off-site? Yes, they might be, and that's not necessarily going to change. But we do have to try and capitalize on the jobs that we can keep in-house, onshore, and take best advantage of that with the different companies we have in this country.
And I would just like to add, actually, the trend is going, in some industries, in the technology industry, the trend is actually going the other way. Their advanced manufacturing is actually being rooted back here because it shortens the supply chain. It helps, create stronger quality assurance on your products. And there have been we as a company have experimented with that because we know that if we want to bring a product to market quickly, it might actually need to be in Ithaca, New York, as opposed to across the world.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you again. And just saying, the idea of making labor positions, like you said, bringing them back to the United States, just as attractive as an intellectual or immaterial labor position, because sometimes, like you said, companies do choose to do that. So that was sort of the source of my question. So thank you.
Should have said that at the beginning.
We have to solve all the world's problems right here, right now. Otherwise, we can't live. Anyway, thank you, amazing panel, for doing all that you've done today and all that you've been doing and to support the work of the Bronx. So thank you very much.
We have one final speaker, but first I'd like to also acknowledge and thank the staff of Assemblymember Blake, especially Derek Lewis and Aaron Carr, who were instrumental in coming up with a number of our panelists. So let's give Assemblymember Michael Blake's office a big round of applause. Second, a lot of us are retreating across the street to 150th and the Grand Concourse to Giovanni's, to G-Bar, to discuss the conference afterwards. If you want to meet some of the panelists or continue the conversation over alcohol, we encourage you to come over to G-Bar afterwards, if you're able to. And now, last but certainly not least, we've been joined by New York City's Chief Technology Officer, Minerva Tantoco.
Hi, good evening. How are you? Hi. I feel like this is like my little homecoming. I feel like I know everybody, at least a third of the people in the room. It's so nice to see all these familiar faces. Thank you, first of all, to Borough President Diaz for hosting this. It is really a pleasure to be back here in the Bronx. It's actually, as it happens, my 4th time in the Bronx in as many weeks. So I know. Thank you. I did spend 4 years up here at Bronx High School of Science. And I recently judged their first ever hackathon, and I was also at the Bronx XL Incubator, where some of my friends who were leaving were there in the earlier panel. We were up here doing trees count. The first 2 trees counted in this year's trees census were Bronx trees. Okay, and Commissioner Silver and I counted those. Right? Yeah. And of course, Bronx Tech Meetup, which is really great. I'm so glad that's going strong, and that was so much fun with the students from Bronx International High School. So I do, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Minerva Tantoco. I'm the first ever Chief Technology Officer of New York City. So what is this? It's actually really a strategic role. We've got, a lot going on in the city of New York. We have a lot of technology. We also engage with the technology sector in New York City. And so this job is primarily around helping to tie together a lot of the different threads of technology through the city. And when Mayor de Blasio created this role, it was in recognition of the importance of technology to New York City and the importance of technology to New York City government. And so, we see the transformative power of technology. And I personally felt really strongly, having been all over the world and seen, tech sectors in India, in China, and now in the UK, Ireland, and so forth, that, I did start to think like, wait a minute, I need to get back home and do it there. And I see a lot of huge advantages, actually, for folks like Startup Box and others here in the Bronx, because when I came from the private sector, I've been in technology for 30 years. I've been a chief technology officer for 17 of those years. And most recently, when I saw what we were doing, when we were starting to outsource, say, QA and all of that, we ran into some issues, time zone issues, right? So then it was like, oh, well, maybe we should go, to Brazil. They're kind of in our time zone, or Canada, And so, I think that the proximity and keeping things close to home is going to be a huge advantage in this next wave. And, to the point about, this last round of conversations, I don't know about you, but I don't want to win a race to the bottom. Because then, what do you win? You get to be at the bottom, right? So I think that, when I think about New York, I think about the creativity, the innovation, and the great minds that are here, and not, to race to be the cheapest at making those socks. You know what I mean? I think that, is great. When I think about the history of when we were looking, for example, just Singapore, that used to be our low-cost location, believe it or not, in the banking world, right? And they made a very specific decision 20 years ago that this is going to be our tech sector, this is going to be our edge, and we're going to build a whole thing, and we're going to be there. And now they've become the most expensive location, right? And so I think we think about the evolution of that. I think it's okay to start off. Let's figure out what our competitive edge here is in the Bronx. What are the small scope of things that we can focus on, and then like build from there. You know, I also think that not one program is going to solve everything. Although again, to the last panel, I have to say, having a job is sexy. Being successful is sexy. And smart is sexy. So, you know, I know he's left, but there's no such thing as an unglamorous, smart intellectual job. So I know it's a bit rambling, but, you know, it's been a long day. I do want to say that, you know, the folks in this room, you know, will be the future of New York City tech, will be the future of Bronx tech. Because just by being here and having that dialogue with one another is the first most important step. When you create those things, I started out in Silicon Valley in 1985. My first job was a startup company. That was an unusual move in 1985, trust me. But it gave me a lot of confidence because, first of all, I didn't have to work my way up the ladder. I was in charge. I also didn't know what the heck I was doing half the time, but at least I knew how to program artificial intelligence, and no one else knew how to do that. So I could certainly boss them around, you know, in that regard. And so when I finished and sold my company and then went into the corporate world, it really did give me this level of understanding of all the jobs in a company: marketing, product management, finance, hiring, firing, you know, managing cash, all that stuff. So I do think that in some ways, for some kinds of people, starting their own company is a great first job, you know. Then I reached a point where, okay, I actually did want to learn from other people and learn, you know, how big organizations worked. And then I spent the next few years doing that. And then I went into another startup and then sold that. And then something went terribly wrong and I spent 10 years in financial services. But, you know, that's a whole other story. But what was fun there was actually all the innovation that's been happening in the last 10 years. So I've been able to see an entire industry essentially become a tech industry, right? Banking used to be this sleepy, boring, right? It used to be this joke like, oh, he's a banker, how boring. And then it became this tech job. So to the point earlier, almost every job in the future in one way, shape, or form is going to be a tech job. So if we don't prepare every single New Yorker, every single kid in that New York City school, how to work and deal with tech. You can't even be a waiter now without using some sort of tablet, you know, and figuring out how to do that. And why not be the person that creates the software for that restaurant, right? That's a way better job than that. So I agree with everyone in the room that this is the future. Get over it, learn how to do it. Network, I like network your ass off. I think that's my quote of the night, you know. And make sure that the way you network is also important. I loved it when I talk with my mentees. It is all about what do you bring to the table, not what you can get. It's all about givers, not takers. And, you know, it may be years and years before you get something back off a favor that you did, you know, whatever. But that's kind of the point, you know. People always ask me, how did you end up doing this? Every single job that I've gotten through someone I knew, actually. Even my first startup, which then led to, you know, one of my customers of the first startup said, hey, maybe you'd like to come here. So it was this whole chain of events that started with making sure that you live life like you're going to live for another 100 years. You will see that person again. You will work with that person again. And so if you pay it forward, it will come back to you. So I do want to take a quick moment, because I forgot to mention this special secret thing about the wonderful Majora Carter. We need more Majoras here. Thank you. So if anything, everyone should aspire to be the next Majora Carter. And strangely, we actually were in high school together for 1 year. We overlapped 1 year. But, you know, this, I think, is also a testament to, you know, there was something in the water there, that, you know, really. Because, you know, just because it was a place where, kids got opportunity and exposure to certain things. And then, I know at least 3 other CTOs who were from my graduating class of Bronx Science. So Eric Hoffert, he was the class ahead of me. He wrote, when he was at Apple, he wrote a little program you might have heard of called Flash. Then we've got, actually was Mike Dubno. He was the CTO of Goldman Sachs. He was also in that class. Yeah, and my good buddy Warren Habib, he's like a great man about town, and too many things to mention about all of that. So I think that model of just putting smart people together in a room like this and giving them opportunities and exposing them is going to be huge. So I don't want to go on too long because I want to be open to some questions, but I do want to talk a little bit about New York City and what some of our plans are and some of the things that I'm really proud of that the city has just started to do. As you might have heard, the digital divide is real. The access to the internet, the more digital the government goes, the more behind people who don't have access to internet are going to be. So we're very, very mindful of that. In that rush to digitize government and make it like Google and make it like Amazon and all of that, we have to keep in mind that 22% of New York residents don't have internet access at home. And then if you look below the poverty line, 36% of those people don't have internet access at home. So if you put out a program that, just go online, it's easy, that's not so easy for a lot of people. And those folks are potentially smartphone dependent as well. So I want to be keeping in mind that is going to be an issue. And so those are some of the things that I'm hoping to impact on a citywide level, to start thinking about sites, the government websites, our government apps, to keep in mind that they have to be accessible to all. We're also, as you know, the counsel to the mayor, Maya Wiley, is the lead on the mayor's broadband strategy. And again, Majora, you're a great, great partner in that. And it's a tough thing to change. We're not going to solve the world's problems with one sort of task force, but it's opening the dialogue with the wireless vendors, with the schools, with the libraries. And a part of that, Google, we're doing some pilots, right? Can you borrow a MiFi from the library like you used to be able to borrow a book? So Google gave $1 million to try and see if that would work as a way for people to borrow, internet access essentially from the library and take it home so they could do their homework. And then by taking it home, their whole family gets access to that MiFi. So that's one aspect of that. The New York City Economic Development Corporation is investing in these business zones, right? So for startups, that internet access is your life's blood, right? And so you need fast, cheap internet access. So they're working with landlords and carriers to light up and wire these business zones that they're building out. I think I love that we were talking about talent, and I won't, because we had already had a great conversation. We've talked a bit about the tech talent pipeline, but I also want to talk a little bit about the other piece of my office, so the Mayor's Office of Technology and Innovation. Innovation is the cool, sexy stuff, I have to admit. I really like it. But it's really about how not only new things, which we are doing some new things, I'll talk a little bit about that, but we're also talking about doing the things we do today in a new way. Right? So we just released a One NYC, which is sort of the 10-year plan and envisioning what New York City would look like in 2025. There's an equity lens around that, saying everything that we're planning to do, our capital plan, we need to make sure that it's an equitable plan. And then for our innovation, for my group especially, when we talk about making New York City a smart city, a lot of cities around the world talk about sustainable city, resilient city, managing growth. But we also are adding to this global dialogue about smart cities, and we're saying a smart city is an equitable city. You can't have just the technology lead the smart city. It's about the people, right? Are we using technology to democratize society? Are we using technology to equalize the voice of people who wouldn't have a voice? And if you're not doing that, go back to the drawing board and figure out your program again. So thank you. Now, finally, I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about the Bronx and my second home in terms of my high school. Here it is, more than 1/3 of households in the Bronx, 34%, don't have broadband access at home. So compared to 30% in Brooklyn, 26% in Queens, 22% in Staten Island, and 21% in Manhattan. So this, if you're thinking about just broadband access at home, the Bronx has the most people that don't have access, okay? And yet, in 2013, a report by the Center of Urban Future, of all the boroughs, the Bronx had the fastest growth in new business and in corporations between 1991 and 2011, with a 305% jump. So going from 1,159 newly formed businesses in 1991 to now 4,690 new businesses in 2011. I think we don't have more recent data. So we know that the entrepreneurial spirit in the Bronx is alive and well. And so my job as a public servant is to help unlock that potential. If we can achieve that much in the Bronx with like very little internet, imagine what we can do with all the bandwidth that we could possibly use. And so I think this is a really great story here, because you've managed to do the fastest business growth of all the boroughs, actually, in terms of incorporations, and yet, you're doing all this, without, all of the access that you need. So I think that our role is to take talent, add opportunity, add technology, and with that, we can build up the Bronx tech sector to be the best in the world. So thank you very much. I think we can take a few questions. Sorry, I went a little over time, but I love this. I love the Bronx so much, I went on and on. Sorry.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're fabulous, as always.
Thanks so much.
So that's the end of the conference. We're going to be heading over to Giovanni's if you want to talk to more people. So 150th in the Grand Concourse. Giovanni's downstairs at G Bar.